Hi, everybody. Welcome. Just going to turn up my sound settings over here. Lessons for full spectrum humans. Let me start over. Hi, everybody. Welcome. This class is called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. Today, I'm doing level 1, lesson 6. It's called the inner and the outer. And before I dive into the prepared curriculum for today, I do want to start off with talking about some current events that touch a little bit on what I teach about and that also relate to, let's probably say, the community in air quotes of people that you interact with or that you might have consumed thought forms from or connected with in some way. So it is rumored but not confirmed that David Wilcox killed himself. And I have a lot of things to say, but don't want to seem unkind in the sense of like piling onto someone who may or may not be still alive or to be unkind to their memory. So the things that I mostly want to emphasize are the dilution and the confusion that this person created in the UFO community, or however you would like to describe it. And also to be a little bit personable, because I was processing my feelings about this. So of course, I am a supernatural visitor, like however I would like to describe myself. I am terrestrial. I'm not necessarily non-terrestrial, but I haven't been terrestrial for a long time, but I'm terrestrial here now. I'm extra dimensional, but I am not in any way a clank metal technology using extraterrestrial, which is how human culture traditionally views or conceives of these types of otherworldly visitors, right? So when I first came here as Aurora and as I started to explore the culture here, and when I found out that there even was a quote unquote UFO community, I was like, how wonderful. Like, these clearly will be wonderful, good friends of mine. Like, imagine if you come from the planet of tomatoes, and then you come to a different planet and they're like, we are having a tomato sauce festival. And you're like, I think I'm going to love this because I'm from the planet of tomatoes. And then you go there and you find out that like, it's not real tomato sauce. The recipe has been changed and somehow it is like a molecular deceiver instead of real tomato sauce. So this is very much what I experienced. As at first I was excited that there's even this type of cottage industry of people talking about otherworldly creatures and supernatural experiences and even near-death experiences. Although I never wished to commodify my experience or my entry into this world. Like, I never wanted to make it something that I would like share for a fee or something like that, because it's too special and too deep and profound. But as I started to like connect more with these people, I went to a couple of UFO conferences, and at first I was very like accommodative because I'm like from the planet of tomatoes, and I'm like, oh, like this is what you guys think tomatoes are all about. Okay, like how interesting, and tell me more. Like I was very polite and I don't know, high-minded about it. And I also could take it in that way because I was like, oh, like these are very unevolved people or have an immature view of the world. And I am here to bring a more elevated and evolved and sophisticated view of the world. So I really was not in condescension mode and was more in celebration, sometimes humorous recognition of what was being said there, but not really that threatened by it. But now it appears like the things that were being done, I can't just treat it as a silly LARP, that people were being whatever, silly or fantastical or doing other things like that with their imagination. Now it has to be like analyzed in what ways was this corrosive? In what ways did this have an unhealthy or dysfunctional impact on you and your journey, like how you are evolving as consciousness, and in what ways do you currently in this moment have to ungroom yourselves from the grooming that false information or false expectations were fed to you by this David Wilcock person? Because I think that not only was he not a genuine intuitive psychic, but that he got a lot of his information from intelligence agencies, or his information was fed to him in the sense that he would be, whatever, like a hose bringing it to the rest of the garden. he would be receiving this information, secret behind the scenes, special people's information, and then bring it to everyone else. Because when you think about some very, very critical expectations, like the expectation of a solar flare, that's gonna either wipe out bad stuff, wipe out bad technology, and or at the same time uplift the righteous and reward the righteous. So I'm not saying that that is not a valid proposal. I think that it is a valid proposal, but I think that the timing of it and the way it is presented from David Wilcox et al., all of the people that he's affiliated with and everybody who has an agenda behind them, I think we have to reassess this whole thing because like I am a solar being, I'm very much from the sun, and I was very much expecting, and I would say validly expecting, independent of any reportage from David Wilcock, that there would be a direct intervention from the sun, the stars, and the world of pure light, even before the satellite grid was energized, even before the full subcutaneous intramuscular campaign became evident. Because I know cosmic law, and I also know how the larger galactic society is structured and what is a reasonable expectation. So I clutched my pearls. I was very shocked and appalled, even that these ruffians could get to the point of creating a satellite grid and also coercing and forcing so much nanotechnology under people's skins and throughout their body forms. So I was very disappointed in that. But I would say there is a validity, just like anybody who's a really good liar or a good blatherer or blarney or whatever, like a person who's a good storyteller, taking some flavor of the original truth and then distorting it, diluting it, and disturbing people with the way that you're sharing it. I think that that's what this person did. And so it's time to kind of take away anything that was an artificial flavor or anything artificial that was added to this recipe and get back to the kernel of truthfulness, which is, that you are directly connected to this giant brain that is what all the sun and the stars and the world of pure light is or are, that you have this a higher dimensional connection to that, and that a lot of this is a cognitive journey or metamorphose of your shape of your viewpoint, not the shape of your body, like to look like some grotesque monster or whatever like that, or to go into a clank metal spaceship and then propel yourself or feel propelled through time-space coordinates. Can I take a moment for a sub-rant? Like within this rant about the UFO community, I now have to do a sub-rant on Artemis, where I'm like, nobody can think that this is actually real. But then I have a friend that I even went out and had a lovely dinner with, and we're just talking casually, like, what do you think about that Artemis? And they were really believing in it. And I didn't want to be impolite and be like, wow, I think it's a load of claptrap. But I think that they knew, because they kind of were like, I think we're on different pages here. So we'll just gloss over that. I'm like, we're on different pages here. So please know I am extremely critical of the Artemis PSYOP, which was not a real space-time coordinate blasting off in a metal clank spaceship experience, but was definitely a CGI or concoction of live action and animation, a la a Roger Rabbit, something like that. So why do I say that? Because of many, you can look them up, wonderful anomalies that were technological glitches in the green screen and special effects that are there. So some people have devoted many hours of their life to analyzing this in great detail. So I use this in order to bolster my intuition, because I tell you about your tendril of attention. Grab this little thing. I'm sorry, I think I have dog hair at my nose. You place your tendril of attention on something, just enough to taste on it. And if it tastes like it's corrupt, it's like, whoa, that doesn't taste very good. Get out of here. So that's what I do with these NASA videos. I don't want to spend 12 hours looking at everything in every pixel. Someone else has done that. I can just touch on it lightly and be like, oh yeah, that's that fake thing that I don't want to have anything to do with. So I hope that you're sensing the topical theme here. I am genuinely from a higher dimension, from the stars or affiliated with the stars, and have the level of information. Like I'm a galactic encyclopedia. It's my, I didn't want to say that with so much attitude, but a little attitude there. It's my job and my joy to be full of this information and to tell you all about it. So again, back to some of the personhood of me, I was always moderately not rejected, but like inconvenienced that I'm like, guys, like I'm right here. You can ask me all these things and I can tell you about all these different things. But instead, people were more interested in like asking someone who is a self-proclaimed Bigfoot expert or like asking someone about mermaids. And like a lot of these people are like largely self-elevated frauds. So you have to know that. And many of these people are harmless, but attention seekers. And what is the problem is that we have to have a genuine discussion and a genuine, clear vision of what we are experiencing in consciousness, in connecting our consciousness in telepathy, in who is here on this planet, and also who or what are you connecting with from elsewhere or from other realities. And that this is beyond a decorative hobby. It should be considered the foundation of your survival because if you think about the very worst of the worst, like very misguided scientists and technology users who are in CERN or one of these large hadron colliders, and they are very openly punching fabric, like punching holes in the fabric of space-time and letting very distorted things that you would call demons come through those holes. It's like you should have a consensus. You should have a social conversation about do we want to do this? Is this good? Can we talk about this? Like we're sitting down as a group to be able to consider this. And of course, it's a terrible idea. It needs to stop immediately. And other aspects of who or what is acting through various world leaders. Like some people look at the mercurial and unpredictable evil and misbehavior of some of these world leaders or supposedly elected leaders and thinks they can't, no one normal acts that way, no human being acts that way. There must be something wrong with that person. Maybe there's something wrong with their brain, and or maybe there is something else inside of them. Maybe there is something else riding along. So these are beginning to be foundational aspects of who is organizing your world, who is leadership of your world, and then also this will relate directly to your community members, like people that you see every day. And you will start to actually really reconsider, like, are these people that are walking around fully embodied native, human souls and really alive organic presences? Or am I looking at a cellular container for something else that is either unearthly or extra dimensional or a harmful fragment that lost its own body through its own misadventure and is now looking for opportunists to act through? And I think that David Wilcock represented all of those things. I think that he had a lot of ego vulnerabilities and the same levels of frailty and attention seeking that many of the other self-elevating, supposed self-proclaimed experts in various levels of the psycho-spiritual world share, but also their fandom also share some of those same vulnerabilities, egotistical tendencies, sometimes narcissistic tendencies. Just like own it, it's there. Because some of these are very good people and creative people, but also it has to be recognized. If you take someone with a particular level, like a particular characteristic quotient or recipe, and then you just add fertilizer to it and amp it up all the way, like you're going to get some really big distortions. So if you take someone who already has a tendency for like some imaginative thinking and fantasizing and self-centeredness and solipsism, and then you add other things to it, then you end up with this very imbalanced thing. Why does this matter? Like I'm teaching you all about how you're part of a galactic continuum of consciousness. And this is the particular lesson where I tell you, you're not just swimming around in your own private kiddie pool. Your mind is actually connected to an ocean of consciousness. And this is the beginning of self-responsibility, the age of responsibility. That is fun because it represents leveling up Like people are like, responsibility, no, I want to like stay an infant. And like, no, you do not. You want to move out of your passive infantile state and you actually want to become an active and engaged adult. So I'm almost segueing into, the curriculum and getting into that because I didn't want to do just like, drop emotional truth bombs and everything like that. Because what I have to share is much more, I think, like uplifting and relevant and focused. But so humanity right now is teetering perilously. You're coming out of the materialistic age and you're moving into an age that is beyond the five senses, where you really do have higher intuition, higher senses, things that are measurable, but you haven't built the measuring tools with which to measure them. And so you don't really have consensus reality there. A lot of things that have yet to be defined, and also social patterns that have yet to be defined in this level of reality, as many of these social patterns that come from ancient concurrent Atlantis are somewhat translatable, but not fully translatable. And you will have to find or create analogs or new ways of doing things in this time and place. David Wilcox and company did a great disservice to you in creating artificial expectations, not only about like what is a solar flare or flash, when would it happen, what would it look like, but other aspects of what does ascension look like, when will it happen, how will it happen, what can you expect, and how to prepare for it. So gather around, children. Grandmother Aurora will tell you stories now from like 2016, all right, from 10 years ago. And also, I am going to be a grandmother, not because I've ever had a physical child here, but because I'm raising quail and I have two quail that I thought were boys, but one of them actually is a girl and finally had an egg. So that will make me a grandmother in some sense. But gather round, I know I'm so silly, and I will have my imaginary rocking chair and I will tell you stories about not only the UFO community of 2016, 2017, but where humanity was. This was pre, 2019, pre-COVID, pre-nano. And humanity at that moment climbing up to really high levels, not teetering perilously, but really getting to high levels with an enormous amount of genuine grounded hope and expectation for continuing to evolve and move forward. Like imagine, a child or an organism who is like meeting all of their goals and learning how to walk and learning how to talk. And there's every expectation that soon they'll be riding a bicycle and, then one day they'll get a job and move out of the house, right? Like that's the direction you're heading. And humanity got very much like disastered or reduced or held back. So we didn't continue to evolve at that same pace. But what was being presented then, and some of it was psyop from lettered agencies and the very same DARPA institutions that ended up creating the nano implantable technology. But there were there were certainly dangerous levels of co-opting of the culture where they hadn't yet put something in people's brains to directly control your neurological capacities. So the only things that could happen would be social distractions, like someone comes along and says, don't listen to so and so, listen to so and so instead. But you still have your free will to be able to choose what you listen to, and or the usual censorship of certain voices and elevation of other voices. So there were some people that would be part of the more visible community and have more sales, more professionalism. People would buy their books more. And then there would be other people, and those wouldn't necessarily be the best voices. Then there would be other people that, they would sell like a couple of copies of their book. No one would ever hear about them. So there were those levels of social manipulation, but it was also even before the algorithm controlled everything. Like even in 2017, that was when I really started to notice that there were certain people on YouTube or other social media where it's like, why is this video being promoted so much? Or why is this person suddenly a thing? But that was the algorithmic promotion of certain personalities at that moment was not ubiquitous. Now it is totally expected, where everything that you see on your screen, is artificially curated and placed in front of your face, and that someone has decided you are going to see this, whether you're genuinely interested or not. But in 2017, there was still a lot more of, I would say, natural or organic, but these aren't really the right words, but let's say uninhibited connections happening through the internet with recommended videos and people sharing the things that are important. And so there was more of that type of wildness and not necessarily algorithmic pruning like some extremely severe garden or whatever. And a lot of interesting things could happen, if you connected with the right website or the right blog space or something like that. Okay. But even at that time, it was very questionable. Why? So David Wilcock was part of this group of people that were telling you what to think and how to think about outer space, including if you go back to origins of this sense of like, what is the solar flare or when are we going to have that? But also, who first told you about the secret space program? The first time I ever heard about that was from this total fantasist, grifter, fabricator, bad person who is Corey Goode, who everybody in the world recognizes is like not a genuine person and has even had to testify in court that he made the whole thing up. Okay. So this really speaks to this. Like, I'm not going to, well, fictionally say it like this. The CIA has been controlling the narrative around extraterrestrials and higher levels of supra consciousness for a very long time in order to keep you as a disempowered passive participant and a person who doesn't even know who you are and what are the depths of your own capabilities, in order to further disempower you. And then hopefully, I think their end game was to like completely amputate you from your divinity or psychic powers and just keep you as this eternal, passive infant and kind of, you would be stuck in a mind prison that you could never get out of. So that would be very, very negative thing. So of course, I'm not going to let that happen. And those are all, it's not, you wouldn't even want to let someone go down that cul-de-sac of consciousness to explore it because it is such a negative and painful thing for consciousness to have happen to it that anybody who's a guardian or a protector of consciousness would be like, let's just prune those timelines. Let's not even have those realities happen. So you do not, want to open the door for that. But you have to recognize the level of malevolence that has been running your world and the level of the deeply evil agenda that has motivated those intelligence agencies, but they are really secret societies that are really a type of, dark worshipers that they would want to imprison or destroy your consciousness in some way. David Wilcock was part of that. And Corey Goode was also part of that. This is not just hobbyists or people having a fun, whatever, summer vacation and going to some kind of whatever workshop where they're going to workshop something in the desert or something like that. There was a lot of very dark stuff and dark mind control, dark diminishment of people's soul energy. And the fandom, I think, is unhealthy fandom. And it moves beyond even the dysfunction of when people adore a rock star or a movie idol or something like that, because I think that a lot of the people that were adored in the UFO community are not very charismatic figures. They are not very talented or artistically prolific or contributors in very many ways. In fact, in very many ways, they are unimpressive non-contributors who do not deserve to be given attention. And I will just also, I'm not worried about like Gaia TV or anything like that. Like they are evil. They are very bad. What is wrong with them? Even way back, Gather Around Children in 2017, Gaia was starting to experiment with like a subscription-based accessing of their information, alternative media, and they were selling like a little Wi-Fi router box that you had to put in your house. And it is my proposal that those were bad mind control frequencies. This is again before 2020 and 2021 when the mind control frequencies became very bad and very all over the whole planet and you couldn't escape them. So these were ones that I think were early rollout in certain people's homes. And it's terrible that it's by subscription because those are the people who were paying for this. And it doesn't mean that they were consenting to being mind controlled, even though to the dark magicians, they would consider that a subscription-based, consent-based demonic possession, like monthly subscription service. So Gaia TV being very negative in terms of transhumanist technology being deployed against its subscribers. And also, I would say negative in the influence of human mind. I want to say grooming of consciousness, but then I stopped because like, well, I mean, like books influence your mind. Books movies, TV, these things influence your mind. It's correct. We should have our minds influenced, but what's the difference between correct influence, either from like an encyclopedia, a professor, a teacher, or a coach, or from, let's separate from that, an artist or a person who's doing something creative, or separate from that, someone who is wanting to exploit you and steal from you in some way. So it's okay with the other stuff. If you are influencing someone because you're a teacher or a gymnastics coach or something, like that's good. You should do that. Or how about you're just an artist and you just make stuff, but you like to make stuff, whatever. You like to paint strawberries and everybody is like really influenced by your strawberries. Totally fine. There's no ethical problems with this, but then there are real ethical problems if you become a groomer, like if you are influencing people to exploit them so that that way they will give up their own free will or give their money to you, or if it will make you artificially more powerful than you would have otherwise. I have to drink some water here. Thank you for understanding. It's getting warm. Hold on a moment. So I think that David Wilcock was influenced by government agencies or occult societies that are part of government agencies to promote certain agendas that were meant to give you cul-de-sac dead ends. And some of these things might have been about waiting passively, like don't do anything, but let the solar flare come. And maybe it would have or wouldn't have, or maybe it will at some point. But I think that passivity was not the right path for us. Also, some of these other stories about the SSP and supposed experiences through time. And this is maybe difficult to hear. Some of you might have identified with those stories and wondered if you yourself had these experiences or were recovering from these experiences. So the problem is that you're moving into a world of pure consciousness. If other people have given you expectations about something, when you move into those levels of pure consciousness, you may experience or manifest the things that they have implanted or put into you in expectation, and then you'll fulfill those expectations. Yes, someone is thinking like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Correct. Like when we are in ascension, we don't want to think about the manifestation of our worst fear or our mind out of control. But likewise, we don't want to go into moments of direct reality manifestation and simply manifest the narratives that fulfill and serve something that is like either from the CIA or A Course in Miracles or the Law of One. Like these are all very questionable things. Or the Gateway program or any of those things. All of these things take away from the natural, untrammeled experience. Like when there's fresh snow and there's no ski tracks on it and no one's been there yet. That's what the experience is supposed to be like for you. And then you go forward and you create the pathway, which is like a neural pathway, but also a pathway in time. And when someone else has already created the footprints or the ski tracks, and they're like, oh, yes, like you're going to meet your dead ancestors, or you're going to meet a bunch of blue avians, which, by the way, like I had to add this to the rant, like no one can believe that. No one can believe that from the beginning. It was so ridiculous. And it became a punchline on the TV show Resident Alien, which is a funny, silly show that is harmless to watch. But like that should tell you that you can't take that information seriously and that you are being ridiculed by your handlers, overseers, government creators of narratives. So what's the big narrative is that the government somehow knows more about aliens than you do as an individual, that somehow they have access to them or access to more information or technology of them, and that they are somehow making agreements or contracts that have an influence on you and on human society. And also that in your passivity and infantile state, you acquiesce and give power and authority to the government, like, yes, mommy, daddy government, you should protect me from things that are too big for me to know. I am small and stupid. So you protect me from the presence of aliens and you make all these negotiations and contracts, and I will just live here on the American farm, or like, the farm of whatever is your country. And like that is not a good thing to do either. And so to start from like a completely different viewpoint, I have always told you that when you are talking to genuine, benevolent, otherworldly, higher dimensional creatures like aliens or extra dimensional creatures or whatever, you don't need a government permission slip, like the way you need a driver's license. Like, you are now hereby authorized to drive your car. Like, you don't need the government's permission to be able to talk to angels or aliens or divine creatures or any of these things. But you do need to learn how to be a polite lady and go to the debutante ball. So that way you're not uncouth. I'm not going to drop my opera glasses at how badly behaved you are. You're going to be very well behaved. So what does that look like? That looks like the beginning of what I've been teaching you, like how to observe boundaries in a telepathic society. How do you act when you recognize that you're not in your own private kiddie pool? How do you respect not only other people's privacy or the sanctity of their own mind and their own DNA, but also how do you respect the sanctity of the environment within which you live? So much as I have hilariously told you that when I first came here into this world, I was like, oh, like the world is for me. If there's a bowl of strawberries, like they're all there for me, because I'm like the mentality of a 3-year-old. And then you learn like, oh, there are other people and I must share with others. But it is a quantum truth that like you are emanating the world around you. You are collapsing all of these waveforms from an abstract potential into the experience of matter, and you are placing it there for yourself. But you must, in the world of social contracts, appreciate the sanctity of private property. That means that it's like, well, technically, I manifested that guy's garden bench over there that I'm looking at right now. But I'm not going to go over there and steal it from his house. I'm going to leave it there. I manifested him, his house, and his garden bench, and the tree over his garden bench. I'm just going to sit here and appreciate it. I'm not actually going to go there and take it. So this is like a different relationship because you recognize that there's a sanctity to the environment around you. Instead of going around and violating or touching or taking things that aren't yours, you're like, oh, all of this is me, but I am not supposed to have outright access to all of it. Got it? So this is you learning to be polite ladies so that you can have your sweet 16, your quinceañera, your beautiful coming out party, and then you will be ready to connect your mind politely and constructively with other minds. And so much of what the UFO community, David Wilcox, and these very unsavory grifters did was created a lot of negative grooming inside of you as to what is the world, how to react, how to connect with the world, how should you connect with these higher dimensional creatures. And so much of this stuff of like government mandated interventions or having them as a type of intermediary is the ultimate in like, if you're going to drop your monocle, like shocking, we are dismayed and perturbed at this assertion. No, no, no. No, we must not have any type of government interference because that's the most inappropriate thing in the world. Like you're supposed to be playing with the band. You're going to come with your best inner music. You're going to come with your best imagination and creativity and be like, da-da, creative explosion, along with the rest of all of this beautiful cultivated life. And the government is like the mental control system that's like, no, you're not allowed to do this. And you're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to act like this. You're not allowed to paint with that color. You're not allowed to do this. So no, all of those government interdictions and constrictions have to be released. This is what happens when you translate into the age of Aquarius, because you release the Pope as a religious control structure, university professors as an intellectual control structure, and governments as a behavioral control structure, and you go 100% on your own inner directive of what you feel is correct in the moment. And that is also part of maturation. Like you're not a tiny passive infant anymore. So you're starting to get it. The negative grooming that was placed into you by some of these UFO conference people was about keeping you in a passive and infantilized form, decelerating you, preventing you from accelerating into ascension and bringing you down a lot of blind cul-de-sacs where you would get lost. And so that's not very good. And then my friend that I was talking with about the Artemis mission had recently been to some, like, one of these types of, it was a conscious life expo or one of these types of things. And they were very unimpressed. They went there, to be able to connect, and they've been going there for years, like, 10 or 15 years. They've extensive experience in this whole type of, we'll say, new age type of world. And they told me that they were so cringefully disappointed with the quality of what they saw. And it seemed like it was well attended. And there were a lot of people that were paying, the ticket price to be able to be there, but that the, like, particularly, and I hope that this never finds the author or is offensive to them in any way, but like someone who was talking about something like fairies and dwarves and mermaids. So not something that was like not serious research or something that brings the conversation into a more productive and cultivated application, but really something that is about personal fantasies and personal constructs and personal imagination. But I want you to know, like, I'm an artist and I like people to have personal imagination. And like when I babysit for kids, I'm like, let's play imagination games. This is a positive thing to do, but it should be contextualized as I'm an artist and these are my imagination games, not I'm an expert on mermaids or I'm an expert on Bigfoot. I'm a self-proclaimed expert on Bigfoot and I am here and you're paying a ticket price to hear me give you a scholarly dissertation on Bigfoot. Like that is not correct. So, I just hesitated there because again, my object here is not meanness and I'm not here to make shame and diminish self-proclaimed Bigfoot experts and other people who want to be experts on fairies and whatever, like dolphin creatures or anything like that. Like, I want you to do your thing. But what I don't want is for you to negatively influence other people's mental journey and have them not go to the debutante ball correctly because you've been telling them your imagination as if it's truth. So these are really two different things. But I also I don't validate David Wilcock as any type of researcher. He was a propagandist who was not a researcher looking into things. And the voices, the people who elevated his voice, so that's the people who ran Gaiam TV, like these are secret society affiliated or adjacent or intelligence agency adjacent people. Their funding and opportunities came from that level of creation. So you're talking about intentional steering of discussions and intentional steering of the cultivation of community. And it went very, very deep into who, this was like from 2016, 17, 18 or so, into who would be invited to different conferences, who would be the lead speakers there, and at those different conferences, who would be encouraged and given the attention. And so please know it was very manufactured. It was not a natural way of doing things, and that the best most cogent thoughts did not come to you out of that. You didn't learn more about the structure of the universe or the structure of the cosmos or the truth of anything. And so I attended two of those around 2017, and then I did not go further with that. And I kind of felt like, okay, like maybe humanity at a certain point will grow and evolve and mature and then be more interested in zero point energy, not just to be able to make energy flow in a light bulb for 3 cents cheaper. But like that's all that humanity was focused on at that point. And humanity really is developmentally disabled now because you haven't really grown in the past 5 or 6 years because of the nano invasion. So humanity has to go super duper fast in order to reach your markers and get back on track to where you're supposed to be. Because the very, very truth is that as I'm teaching you, we're going to segue really into real class now, but the zero point or singularity or this place that I'm always teaching you about here, like it's a profound, not a mystery, but like a profound feature of the fabric of reality. You could spend your life exploring the ramifications of it and the significance of it. We would still not be enough time for you to know about that. It is an amazing miracle of existence. And it is so much more than an exploitive energy reservoir where you can get infinite energy to make infinite stupidity out of. Let me hydrate, because you guys know I have also ranted against plastic. Plastic is a little bit of a litmus test for where humanity is in social development. Sorry, always a fly in here when I'm talking. So it's like you're given this stuff where you can make it's pasta, like you can make it any shape, infinite stuff, right? And for a lot of humans, instead of being like, wow, like this is amazing, and I can use this to make anything that I need. But what many humans did was the opposite. They said, I can use this to make a lot of anything, and then I will assign there to be a need of that anything. So instead of using it wisely to create the things that you genuinely need, it was used unwisely to just create a lot of junk. And I love it when I read things now that are social critiques that are like, parenthood is mostly about people giving you plastic that was created by slaves and then having to be a slave yourself and organizing your house full of slave created plastic. And I'm like, this is good social commentary because you're starting to understand what's going on. Most of the plastic items you don't actually want. Most of them are inexpensive and accumulated around you, but not necessarily things that are intentional or desired. And then you spend a lot of time organizing them, putting them away, or trying to get rid of them. Okay, so this is the opposite of what you should do because plastic should be like the way that people thought 3D printing, like this is going to set us free. It's going to be like a replicator. And instead, all that 3D printers did was gave people a way to make extremely like cheap mass-produced things to put in their Etsy shop. No one needs these things. Like no one needs, like you don't need all of these. They're dragons that look exactly alike. And you need one or maybe one artisan making them, but people get the blueprint. They're like, this is what I will make. So this is, again, it's a bad use. If we were calling it magic, it's a bad use of this magic. Like think about old stories about pasta that you could get an infinite amount of pasta, but if it went out of control and you didn't have the off button, then it became something that was a burden and it suffocated the world. This is what plastic has become. And so humans haven't recognized you have to have wisdom and self-control. So if you're acting that badly as a global society and as a species, when you're given something like the concept of, a moldable clay that you can make into anything, how would you act with infinite access to infinite energy? I would say very badly. Very badly. There's a definite immaturity level. So some of the immaturity when we're looking at through the lens of the UFO community, there's ego vulnerabilities and people who have to be the center of attention or who are narcissistic or self-proclaimed, or they are like beyond their own genuine skills. They're like, like overbalancing, thinking that they can do more than they actually can do. So they don't actually have the wisdom, especially when it relates to the non-visible world. And many self-proclaimed geniuses and people who intellectually are a bit over their skis or reaching too much beyond what is sensible. And so it's good to try to innovate, but it's not good when you think that you know more than you actually do, and then you make messes that the rest of us have to clean up. This is a type of important audition because, like the CERN, I want to say monsters, the CERN scientists who act like monsters are putting things into the world that are similarly very dangerous, very noxious entities, not just noxious plastics. And then we got to deal with it. And this is non-negotiable. You cannot go to the debutante ball of the larger galactic infrastructure acting in this way, because what if you're like, okay, great, like now I'm a galactic scale being. I think I'll open a giant galactic portal and let a lot of garbage come into the galaxy, and everyone else who lives here would be like, why are you acting like such a jerk? Like, don't do that. Keep those portals closed. That garbage does not belong here. But like, this is what the scientists are doing on your planet. They're like, they didn't ask you. They're opening these doorways. Bad things are happening. So you can think of the hydrocarbons that make up plastic as similarly being portals, doorways that are chemical doorways to be able to open distorted entities or distorted fragments of consciousness to come into this world. And then the products that are made from those petrochemicals, a lot of them are ingestible. So like some of them might be in health and beauty, what is put on the skin, but also some of it is in drugs that people take. And also then you guys already filled in because you're telepathic, good job. the stuff that they put on the soil for supposed fertilizer. It's not fertility at all, but it's for amplifying food production. All of those things become portals for negative entities as opposed to upliftment chemicals. So what is positive? Now I'm going a little bit into geopolitical weather report. What is positive about the war in the Middle East right now is that it is causing a supply squeeze that is necessitating humanity, even of the most five senses and materialistic participants in your world, to make a real reassessment of how you are using your energy and what you are producing with your energy. These are some of the beginning baby steps to be able to one day, possibly, maybe, think about having free energy. Like, you're never going to get it if you're still doing like, oh no, my hexane shipment is stuck in the Horn of Hormuz. How in the world will I create my inexpensive cling wrap to wrap up sweet potatoes for the market? Be like, duh, Aurora, like they come pre-wrapped. Like, you don't have to put an extra plastic on top of there. Like, you just sell them the way they are. But I know that that is simplistic, and people have mocked me for my rationalism and non-complexity in looking at things. But it is very truthful that these reliances upon negative portals and the entities that have ruled through those negative portals is ending. And that is non-negotiable. Like, this is from a higher dimensional level of the creation of the narratives of time. So please know you have many branching timelines, but they have commonalities. And on all of these common themes that are being explored, there is reduction of access to and reliance upon petrochemicals and the hydrocarbons and reliance upon plastic. So now let's get into what is solar flare actually happening. Because for a long time, I was influenced by this psyop. I admit it. Like, I thought that there would be a sudden thing that would be like destroy all that is not organic and also restore us. And so I've had to just completely change and recalibrate into this being an ongoing event, not a sudden event on the calendar on one day. And the sun does break down I said the wrong thing, not microplastics, but it breaks down microplastics, which is why you want to be in the sun, but it breaks down hydrocarbons. So like if you've ever left a milk jug outside for irrigation purposes, like it's gone in one season, at least where I live, the sun breaks it down. So please know that is an example of this type of influx of light that breaks down the physical bonds of petrochemicals. But and also what you're seeing in terms of geopolitical installation is also the result of more light flowing into the system and destabilizing the system. But it doesn't happen in the way that Gaiam TV has influenced us to think that it will happen. But I do perceive this where there's more cognitive and consciousness energy that is changing human behavior, closing down previous patterns. Those are no longer viable patterns and necessitating the growth or the angiogenesis like towards new blood supplies in the body. So there are real amputations in time where it's like these pathways no longer exist. These worlds no longer exist. If you want to continue to exist, you have to be like that old game Frogger, and you have to jump onto the timelines where it still exists. So we are, hooray, you should celebrate your day. Drink something celebratory. I don't drink alcohol, like drink some whatever, some nice coffee. Be like, hooray, I still exist here today because I have successfully jumped timelines to the moment where I am now. And then to stay alive, like the Bee Gees song, you must continue to jump timelines towards where there's viable timelines or create them. And then where it's been amputated or pruned, know that those are no longer viable realities. So let's say you work at the hexane factory. And it's like, oh no, the hexane is no longer flowing. That reality has been pruned. And you have to recognize that you can no longer exist in reality in your previous shaped form. You would have to either change, get a new job, move to a new place, create new behaviors for yourself, or vestigally dry up and fall off the surface of time because there is nothing here left to sustain you. And that's a good segue into what entropy is and what we're going to be talking about today, because we're going to talk about how Good and evil are dualistic opposites, but when I resolve them with flying rainbow lasagna, it's not like saying evil doesn't exist. Like magically, conveniently wipe it all away. That I think would be one of the most dangerous misapplications of my teachings or what I write in my notes ever. So that is never what I'm talking about. So to make it very, very startlingly clear, I talk about your violet chakra as being your connection to the compass that tells you like where is God, where is divinity, because the pinpoint of divinity, like this singularity point, it's really always moving relative to space time and relative to where you are. So there is an inner compass that you have that will tell you where you need to be going at any moment in order to align with that. So I use the example of the little ant. Like if my thumb is like God's thumb, and it's always going to be pointing towards more levels of divine nature, right? And I'm a little ant. This is me. I'm a little ant and I'm walking along here. And at times the thumb is pointing like this, and at times the thumb is pointing like this, and at times it's even pointing like this. But I am always moving upward towards the thumb now. This is you. You are the little ant. You are always going to be moving through time, space, dimensionality towards greater levels of divinity and self-knowledge and self-identity as divinity, whether you are pointing in this direction or whether you are pointing in this direction. Those words didn't help at all. Okay, wipe it away. Start fresh. Okay, so what makes something evil? Start fresh. Okay, trying again. This is just like when I do music. I'm like, no, not right, not right, not right. Start again. Okay. When we see things that are evil, what really makes things evil is not just doing something wrong, but doing something wrong and refusing to admit that it is wrong or admit that it needs to stop. There are many different things that are wrong notes in the world, and the wrongness of them it is that they are out of pattern, but when they realize that they are wrong, the good part of them is that they say, I need to stop existing. This is the words. Like the energy of my thought is pristine, but when I translate it into words, it's very bad. What you are experiencing right now is energy moving in different directions. Some energy is moving towards organization, light speed, eternal presence. It's getting faster and more intelligent, right? You're like, that's me. I'm getting faster and more intelligent, right? We all are. But then there's a bunch of garbage around you. That is not getting faster and more intelligent. In fact, it is devolving. It is eventually going to a Bose-Einstein condensate, and that is part of my notes for today. It is going towards ultimate density, and that ultimate density is the end result or end of the story for those consciousnesses because they are so flawed that they cannot get back to the state of total energy. So this is the real teaching about free energy. It's not as simple as just getting more money so you can run a light bulb. It is the ultimate in responsibility and being a good person. Most people are not, they're like, I would just pay 3 cents extra. I won't have to work so hard to be a good person. Like, I just want my stupid light bulb to go on. And I'm like, then this is not for you. Because in order to truly access free energy, what you have to do is be 100% the elevating and corrective aspects of self, leaving behind and non-identifying with the non-elevating mistakes and de-evolutions of self. And there are some garbage things that are around you that are so mistaken and so garbage that they are not redeemable. And this is why I have very many qualms with the doctrine of the Christian church. Although I love you, Christian people. I love that you are on a spiritual journey to try to find something better and try to make sense of the world. And you're in a very like garbage world, and it's not easy to analytically come up with a rational framework for it. So I understand your struggles, but I don't agree with some of these doctrines of like endless forgiveness or a jubilee of people doing wrong. Like if you've done wrong, you have a debt. And the point is, there is wrong math that some souls have done. Like they have done things in the world that creates a consciousness debt through behavior, that there is not a way to get out of that debt. I think credit cards in this world are a good analog for you to comprehend this. I don't have a credit card, even though I have tried many times, but they always reject me. You know why? Because they're like, your name is no first name. You cannot be in our club. And I'm like, this is not fair. But I understand that they have their own standards. Okay. So maybe that was good and it helped to prevent me from ever digging a financial hole for myself. That would be so deep that I could never get out of it. But some of you know about this, or people that are in this, or like the United States and other governments. They're in a debt that is so big they can never get out of it. And it's just normal, they've normalized it, but you shouldn't live this way. And even very high level millionaires sometimes live this way too. But now I am a money manager. We're now in economics class. And according to good money management, like, no, like you're not supposed to achieve an enormous level of debt and then just live that way for your whole entire life. And you're not supposed to get new debts to then cover your old debts. I know someone in this class who's very much about money, like changing the money system and improving and healing it is totally connecting with me. I feel your mind. I'm like high-fiving you. I'm like, we are going to fix things. Don't worry. But yes, and I always saw it as an insanity and also something I didn't want to do because it's a metabolic cheat. It's like, your inner reflects your outer, and that's the real curriculum for today, even in terms of like your metabolism, your blood sugar, your appetites, how much you have in your body's metabolism, and how much you have in your bank account, and how much you have, I want to say, on your farm, like in your resources, in your physical world. Like the inner and the outer are very, very much tied together. These are reflections. Your inner metabolism and your body is reflected in your money and your money metabolism. But we live in such a strange world that it's not like the world of, let's say, unevolved Northern Europe in the Dark Ages in the year 1000, where if you had no money then and you were a true pauper, you had no calories and you would be very skinny and very pathetic looking. But it is different here in this world now. You can be a person who is a pauper without a lot of money and living in huge debt, but you won't be starving and extremely skinny, but you might be malnourished because you're eating the lowest quality, like frozen pizza food that comes from the gas station, as opposed to genuinely nourishing food that is bought from a farm and cooked at home. So the people look different. You don't look skinny here when you are a pauper and you are starving, but that is what is happening. Because we're in an inverted world, so it's not easy to see it. People don't look the way they're supposed to look. And same thing, like people who have too much debt, sometimes they don't have a house that looks like just four walls with nothing inside, but sometimes they have a house that looks like a house full of plastic. Cheap stuff from the dollar store. Okay, we're getting there. And of course, no, again, I'm not just here in order to be caustic or critical of people who are impoverished people and who aren't well educated or who don't have good energy and don't know how to live their lives. No, I'm certainly not here to just cast social aspersions upon people because that's easy. It's easy to condescend and to punch down into people who are not doing well in your world. But this is in order to be able to say that there's an energetic economy. Some characteristics are moving towards non-being. And what do good characteristics do that are moving towards non-being? They go there fast as opposed to going slow. So now let's talk about the putis, or the original consciousness residues. They were supposed to go to entropy. At some point in their evolutionary consciousness process, they realized that they shouldn't technically exist. And they're like, oh, my mistake. I thought I should exist, but technically I don't exist. I'm going to go to entropy. And that would mean like a cessation of existence. But instead of immediately ceasing to exist at a certain point, they were like, wait, I'm half existing. I'm half not existing. I think I'm going to just hover here for forever. That was a betrayal. And that was the worst crime that they could do. Because, so I'm sorry I'm saying this so badly. Starting again. Consciousness can go down wrong roads. Consciousness that is good can make mistakes. When a good consciousness makes a mistake, it recognizes that it's gone down the wrong road and it ceases to be in existence. That's what it says. It says, oops, my mistake. I need to go to entropy right now. What the residual consciousnesses did that became demonic or putis, they went partially out of reality partially away from light and away from existence. And then they decided not to go all the way. And they have been vampiring and taking energy from the rest of us who are trying to accelerate. And we're at this moment where that is such an untenable proposal that you can't go on because you guys all need to accelerate. And they're literally trying to hold on to your energy or create a friction that prevents that from happening. And this is what is going on with your planetary, I want to say celebration, but also acceleration, but also ascension. So for the past 5 or 6 years, you're supposed to be like, you're pressing the gas, trying to accelerate and get a lot faster, but there's like a lot of friction in what's in front of the car. A lot of gas isn't actually getting into the engine. So many things holding things back. And this is the rectification moment where you finally get your energy back. Some of that energy went into what I was ranting about at the beginning of this class today. Erroneous thought structures and erroneous power structures. Some of the stuff, like you have to really, I keep saying ungroom yourself. You have to deprogram yourself. You have to disabuse yourself of these notions. And I like that word because it's like you have been mentally abused. You have been mentally abused with these concepts of like a special space force that lived on Mars and then somehow came back in time. And people, I didn't finish that part of the rant, but like, um, there's not a physical evidence of this. There's not a way to be able to talk to someone who has had their mind implanted with this expectation and be like, look, like I can prove it to you. You didn't have that experience. Like if it's like when a person goes into a cult, you can be like, look, like Barney is not a purple dinosaur and he's not God and you can't do this anymore. And they'll be like, no, I worship Barney. Like, people who are believing in that they were in a secret space program or that they went to Mars and they lived for 50 years and then they got reinserted into their lives, like that is a type of implanted mind framework that it's very difficult for others to break. It's very difficult to be like, no, like you didn't actually experience that. And there is such a thing as implanted and fabricated memories, and there is such a thing as people believing in something that didn't actually happen to them. So please know, like, I will validate a lot of things. And people come to me and they talk to me about their experiences. They're like, Aurora, you are the only person that I can talk to about this. And I want you to know I'm not judgmental. So you can tell me about what you've experienced. I will validate things like cloning centers are real. And the things that people experience when they are in cloning centers, like these are genuine experiences, but also I can help people to know what is five senses reality and what is a consciousness journey, because a lot of what's happening is people are experiencing an abstract energy cellular violation that they then interpret through a cultural and biological lens that gives them the story of I was in a cloning factory, when what might be more accurate is something like cell cultures from you and your body are being taken and used and abused in different lab settings and are being exploited and tortured in some way, and you feel that torture, and you might be interpreting it as I'm in gladiatorial combat somehow with someone else. All right. So please know that there's levels of sophistication here that you have to apply in interpreting your experience. So some people are like, but wait a minute, I've like created this foundation identity that I was part of a secret space program, and then all these different things happen. I'm like, I know you have to reassess that. You have to reassess. Did that actually happen to you? Did you conform to a government issued propaganda that made you think that that is what happened to you? And it helps to trace back, where did you first have that concept? Who did you hear it from, and where did they get it from? And once you start to get to the beginning of these things, I think that we're all going to find out like there was really just a couple of, I would call them evil intelligence agents, but a couple of very active secret society intelligence agents, people who were in like the CIA or the FBI in the United States in kind of like the 60s and 70s. And they influenced our world a lot. Like I already mentioned, like A Course in Miracles, The Law of One, the Hemisync gateway telepathy programs, and a couple of these other things that were taken as spiritually minded, channeled information, or somehow upliftments. And really what they were straitjackets for your mind and consciousness reduction tools. So the best thing that can be said for right now and moving forward for the rest of my presentation for today is wipe it all away. Not in a bad way, but like not in a denial way, I should say. But like find a fresh page in your sketchbook, find a fresh stance or a fresh way of being able to respond to these things and have a fresh assessment of who you actually are, what has actually happened to you. Because I would want to validate, like, if you felt that you were in a secret space program, you can say you have been mentally violated, or you have been energetically violated, or you have been psychically violated in some way. That is fair. That's fair to say that. It's not like nothing happened to you or you're crazy. It's that something happened to you, but your interpretation system of what you think it was may be very, very different. And someone else in their mind is thinking, like, oh, like this relates to UFO abductions too. It does. In my most gentle and supportive, constructive way, I can say that many people's self-reportage or their interpretation of what they think is a UFO abduction is really like psychic violation, which is often from mind violators that are actually humans in your world. But a lot of those mind violators got either technology from or training from past or future extraterrestrial species. Sorry, there's so many flies in here. But, and also, please know that those past and future extraterrestrial species are outgrowths of who you guys are right now. So let's say that somebody implants the thought of the marshmallow man into your mind. Then you go into a ascension experience and you manifest a whole marshmallow civilization that goes and projects into the future and then creates some kind of marshmallow time-bending time machine that then projects itself into the past, that then becomes something that they carved, on a rock in ancient Sumeria. Like, this is not an exact analog, but it's the flavor of what we're talking about. Let me just hydrate. And that's why what was initially fun entertainment or infotainment in the Ancient Aliens show, like I watched that a lot in the late 2000s, I'm sure with many other people, and I was tickled by it and amused, and I thought that it was pretty cool. Um, what is concerning about that is that it implanted the concept of these ancient yet future versions of self that would be here, so that at the time when you come into your moment of manifestation at the debutante ball, that you would conform with that mind state or manifest it out of your expectation. So the best thing moving forward is to really disabuse yourself of all of these notions. You have to come to the debutante ball with some sense of a clean canvas so that way you can even begin beginning. And it does mean a release of a lot of these negative expectations. And so also to make it very clear, there were such a thing as technology using space races, and many of them came from and infiltrated your present levels of government and created a lot of the nightmare agenda that you're experiencing right now, especially when it comes to the programmable matter and the nano dust and the seemingly inescapable infestations that they created. They really did try to create a mess that would be almost impossible to clean up, but I am cleaning it up. So now when I can conclude on that rant on about the solar flare, in many ways, I was disappointed because I'm like, that stupid sun up there, like you haven't exactly done anything about these satellites or these horrible nanotechs or the horrible people who proliferate them upon them. I'm like, I'm going to do it. So this is what I've been doing with my psychic capabilities and my non-local gifts. I have had to augment myself and grow new abilities, which is a lot of what Flying Rainbow Lasagna is. But I had to do them not just for like beauty and self-expression, but really to be able to learn, how do I clean up nanotech? How do I pull it apart from its molecular construction? How do I unmake it in reality? So those are skills that I certainly did not come here with and did not know that I was going to have to use my Flying Rainbow Lasagna gifts and abilities to do this. And I'm like, okay, if the sun isn't doing that, I'm doing that. So this is very much like my story about coiling up the electrical cord. Even if you're in an entry level position and technically it's not your job, you're going to do it because that's how you like get promoted. So I'm like, well, okay, son, like technically it's not my job, but this place is totally garbaged up with all this nano and these bad things. So I'm going to do it. So that is literally what I've been doing since, let's say, like 2022 or so. And I've gotten pretty good at it now. And I do it, I multitask. I do that while I am also doing talking with you guys or other socially constructive activities or being able to help people in sessions. So it's important to know like I do spend some time where I'm not just staring into space. I'm actually doing this with my mind and with my capabilities, but that I also multitask and I do this. And I am a supercomputer, and I have utilized my calculative abilities in order to be able to do this. I'm pretty much using the RAM and the processing power of all of the sun and the stars and the world of pure light to do this cleanup. So it's different. It's different than what I had thought, where I was going to be more focused on my art and music, and I could be more like passive, like a passenger, and be like, you take care of all that garbage cleanup. And instead, I am like scrubbing the place with a toothbrush, making sure every little gross thing is cleaned away. But if I don't do it, like it's not getting done. So this is like important, because if I sat around for many, many years being like, don't worry, solar flare is going to come, just like hang in there, guys, I think that would be very wrong and we wouldn't get any place. So the moral of the story is we can't trust PSYOP, passivity generating narratives that come to us from questionable sources, from people who are, running grifts and scams from UFO conferences. And what you have to do is follow your own inner directive and do what is truly spiritually sensible in the moment. And that is also taking ultimate self-responsibility. So that is what I have done. So hold on, let's take a brief, like 5-minute break, because I need to drink some water. 5-minute break, everyone. And then we'll get going more focused on the curriculum. Thank you for that. And let me also go back through some of these comments before go too fast. Charlie B says, agree that these SSP or alternative existence memories can destabilize your definition of self. We have technology to implant memories. Thank you. We can implant whole lifetimes, which can feel more real than real life. The great risk is that you might establish your own identity based on these false implanted thoughts, which are not yours and not true. Thank you so much for articulating that and for giving me that entry point to talk about this, because it is important for people to be able to talk about their inner experience, if it is in a dream, a meditation, a reverie, or something like that, and that it is a valid or truthful thing, in contrast with what Charlie just described, which is a technologically driven, machine-based artifice that can destroy a person's sense of self because it artificially implants something in a person and makes you think that you've either done it or said it or experienced it. And some of our definition of self is in the things that you've done and said and experienced. And so you must have super yellow caution flags on these types of memories or your self-reportage. If you are like, did you have a meditation, then all of a sudden be like, oh, I just remembered I'm a mermaid from Atlantis. Like that, you should question. You should question. Or let's say you do a hypnotic regression with a facilitator and they put you into a trance. And that's when you remember that you're actually a mermaid from Atlantis. And you're like, oh, what's going on with me. Or maybe they subtly tell you, I think you're a mermaid from Atlantis. Like any of these things. You should question that, and you should also question any of these other types of moments of influence or implantation from this. In fact, I want to bring up a good old movie from the 80s that is called Brainwaves. This is with Christopher Walken, where it's based in a true story, although it is a fictionalization, where the government in the United States was actually creating a type of apparatus that could record people's brainwaves. And it is super secret, but they did figure out a way to do it. In the movie, they use it, of course, not just for scientific exploration, but for mind control and even to create nightmare realities. Like one of the characters' son is traumatized because he puts on the headset and it was like, it was set to Nightmaresville, and he gets horribly traumatized by what he sees in his mind. So please know that is disclosure, partial disclosure, and fictional reportage in a movie from the 80s. So you know that technology was grown and evolved even more from there. And someone else is thinking about another movie that's called Strange Days. That was from the 90s and is, again, another valid decent science fiction movie where I think it was Rafe Fiennes and Angela Bassett, and they're in a future dystopia where people can record their brainwaves like with an apparatus. It's very on the go, like for adventures. And what you're recording is through a person's sense, like their eyes, their ears, and there becomes a whole economy in like prostitution, recording people when they're either consensually or non-consensually having sex, and also blackmail, like being able to record something and prove that somebody did something like a murder or something like that. And that was a reportage type of movie from the 1990s. So you know that now it's many decades later, it's probably even more than that. So some of these concepts that come through fictional movies or UFO conferences are valid. And some things that you think about, that you might genuinely have experienced, but some things you might never have experienced and might have been fraudulently implanted into your mind. And it takes a real expert for your own self-assessment or someone else, like a surgeon, to go into your mind and be like, this is the real stuff, and then this is the fake stuff. And that's like some of the most um, you have to have the most trust in a person to do that, like even beyond a plastic surgeon. Like here you've got cosmetic surgeons where you trust them a lot because if they don't do it right, you will come out looking very gross and bad, right? But this is like on your mind where someone would be like, well, we're just going to amputate these things because that's not the real you. And then we're going to just have this part of your brain is the real you, like that. It has to similarly has to do with levels of identity. And I don't know if you would want to empower a surgeon or someone else to do that type of stuff on you. So great points. Thank you for that. Good. Okay, so now let me move on to everything that I prepared in terms of lesson 6. This is all about the inner and the outer. And now you're going to start to comprehend where I'm coming from when I talk about moments of ascension and when you externalize your inner experience in these moments of, I would say, spiritual fecundity, but that word doesn't sound very nice, but they say fertility, moments of spiritual fertility, which is like when a garden grows and everything suddenly comes forward. So you have this artificial separation from your inside and your outside that is a level of your development, but not the ultimate end result. It is just a stage that you're going through, but it's a necessary and good stage. And the stage is called individualization. So when I was jokingly talking about like, oh, in a past life, you were a mermaid from Atlantis, but you guys, you were a mermaid from Atlantis. I'm telling you this now. And before that, you came from Lemuria. You're like, what is going on here? But no, I'm half joking, but half serious because I know a lot of people in this life who are also in Atlantis. And everybody who was in Atlantis originally came from Lemuria. So let's dial ourselves back and remember what this was like. Lemuria was the initial biological experiment of what it is to even be in the physical world. And the experience there was very passive. Here, this is not a very passive life at all. I'm like, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I need the toilet. Like, I need to do stuff, I need to run around and do everything and walk on a treadmill at all times. Lemuria was very different. You were more like a fungus, like a mushroom that stood in one place and was rooted to the ground, and you received everything that you needed. Like in the same way, in Atlantis, we ate pure light, but we were not rooted to the ground. We could move our feet and move ourselves around and even, jump and swim and things like that. But in Lemuria, like we similarly did not have to effort for our food. All nourishment flowed to us. That's all light, all consciousness. Just like when you have baby birds, they just open their mouth, and the food just goes in. That's it. That was our life. And we didn't have to effort to move any place either. Like you're like, this is where you are on the planet or in the world. And you're just there. You don't have to, you do not have a job. I want to joke. I want to be like, what do you have to do? Like, there's nothing to do. There's no place to go. In that level of our reality, which is the first level of biological experience, just being alive is a huge triumph. You're like, hooray, like I have a cellular presence. I'm alive. Like that's it. And that's what you did. And in that world, your biological container was much more of a anchor for your consciousness to have like a physical real estate. but your consciousness went everywhere. Just like here in this time place, at night, you get into your comfy pajamas and you get into your bed, and maybe your dog snuggles up next to you and you close your eyes, and then you relax your consciousness and go into dream states and do all sorts of flights of fancy. Our whole entire world was that in Lemuria. We didn't have jobs. We didn't have to do the dishes. All that we did was sat there. Food goes in here, and then we go on mental journeys. Okay? Lemuria didn't end because of some kind of a cosmic smackdown, like you bad people, gonna wipe you all away and then start again. No, and that's also very like biblical and smitey of your consciousnesses have been groomed. So no, that is not what happened, but that it came to its natural resolution. And then there was the next layer of reality. We had to emerge. Like when you are gestating in your mother's womb, you're like, this something weird is happening. The water is going away. I don't know what to do. How am I going to stay alive? And you're like, you get born. You have to get born. That is how you will stay alive. So Lemuria, although it is sometimes contextualized as a disaster, it's like not a disaster. It was definitely a birth into the next necessitated level of existence, which I've already described to you as ancient concurrent Atlantis. You are similarly light eaters there. With minimal effort, you are able to sustain yourself and have your own atmosphere and your own individual energy field around you. And at the same time, you're connected like a battery to the earth and connected like a battery to the sun and the stars, and you're a conduit between these levels of density, and you can move yourself all around the whole world. And that's what we did a lot, like, or do a lot, move ourselves around land masses and go in the oceans and go in different places. And it's like flocks of birds, or I want to say like buffalo or wildebeest or something, like the way that animals naturally move, like we would just naturally move around. And that is part of our natural ways of being. So I want to also bring this to your sense of biological cellular evolution, the way that human materialistic science describes it to you. So human materialistic science describes that you evolved as a multicellular complex piece of life from a more simplistic unicellular piece of life. So I will go with that story, even though it's not really for real. It's like when I talk to you about the Big Bang, I'm making an accommodation through the academic filter that you've been educated through, but just know, like, you will want to start with a fresh sketchbook page at a certain point in comprehending this. But I'm bringing you to the sense of when the cell membrane was first biologically invented or evolved. Before that, what you had was just mycoplasma or goo, which is, like gelatinous water, neurotransmitters, carbohydrates, like the stuff of life in a big puddle. You just had a pile of goo, and that's what life was in this biological world where, life and death exists, this realm of mortality. And at a certain point, there was this magical invention that's called the cell membrane. And when you created the cell membrane, we'll draw it with my hands. What you end up creating is a barrier between the stuff that's inside and the stuff that's outside. Before we have this circle, we just have stuff everywhere. There's just stuff. But once I draw this circle, then there becomes duality, stuff inside versus stuff outside. And you, in your present form, are the end result and amplification of a lot of those levels of individuation. So I just brought you on the journey of individuation from ancient Lemuria or concurrent Lemuria, where you are part of the totality of the whole planet. You're not separate, to Atlantis, where you weren't separate, but you could perambulate and move yourself around, to here, where people are so separate and so disconnected from the planet, from the stars, and from each other, that they joke, this is my Vinnie Barbarino voice, he's like, I'm looking out for number one. I only care about me. Everybody else, get away from me. Screw off. Get away. And that is not healthy or the intentional end result of individuation. Okay, so to say it less hilariously, in your present level of five senses materialism, when you come here as a little infant human, you actually are still going through that evolutionary journey of individuation and separation from the whole. And the first year of human life is very magical because although the child is in a physical body, which is their own body, they haven't yet cognitively separated from the ocean of consciousness. That's the everything. And that's why it's so magical. If you've ever done any babysitting, like I did a lot of professional babysitting when I first came here as Aurora, and I would hug these little kids, like they're wrapped up like a burrito, like they're very tiny, and you get so much energy from them. It's very, people would think like, oh, like being a babysitter, like you get so drained and worn down, these babies. And I'm like, no, you get energy from it because they're like little tiny batteries, because they're still totally cellularly connected to this larger sense of self. And what happens over the first year of life is not only do the skull plates fuse together and the little baby's fontanelle gets solidified up there, but also the connection, like this is like your violet chakra, the connection gets diminished until the person has a sense of individuality. And during that first year, the new human also starts to explore, like, I am me, and then you're not me. Like, I'm me, you're not me. And figuring out all of that. Like, sometimes it's with a stuffed animal, like, pretend this is my, like, stuffed toy or whatever. Like, oh, me, like, I feel me. And then, like, I don't feel that. That's not me. That's toy. I am me. And also during that first year, if developmental levels are met, most people learn their name because it's always like, you know, like crazy, you hear crazy sounds, you see weird things, you don't know what's going on. But at a certain point, like they say your name, they always say, whatever, we'll say like Charlie, like blah, 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 Charlie, blah, 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 baby. And at a certain point, it's like, Charlie is me. Like you have this moment. And that is the beginning of identity. And identity, when it is based in truth, is positive. This has to do with what are the long-lasting aspects of your identity? So something that is a fake story that was implanted through, you know, mind control or frequency weapons or a bad brain burn, that's not the real you. And it's just a scar in your brain. It's easily wiped away. But your identity and your name is just deep stuff about who you are. It has to do with the neural architecture and the foundation of who you are in the world. And that means that these are things that are indelible that you will carry with you as a soul. So some parts of yourself accelerate to infinity. You carry them with you. And some parts of yourself you do not. And you're like, that either was only a temporary part of me, or it's who I was at the moment, or it wasn't the real me. So some things are toys that you liked when you were a child, but you grow past them. Some things were never the real you. And you're like, yep, that was a mistake, never the real me. And I'm continually refocusing. And that is what good people do. It is your prerogative at any time throughout your journey as consciousness to refocus and to be able to say, oh, like I was wearing a red shirt. I thought I was all about that, but I'm not. Actually, I don't feel like I'm a red shirt person at all. Just take it off. And then you are no longer a person who wears a red shirt. Like you are, it is your prerogative to change at any moment. You might be like, I used to be a vegetarian, but then I changed. And one day I ate a hamburger and then I changed. And, or anything. I might be like, oh, I used to only paint with a paintbrush like this, but then I changed. And then one day I started to get whatever, a spatula, and I painted like this. You must allow yourself to grow and to evolve and not have your definition of self be a constrictive straitjacket. And also, you must make sure that your definition of self is constructed in the polygons of truth, not arbitrary whimsy, which when you set out on your bark of consciousness, your raft of consciousness, if you are built on whimsy, you will get crunched in the first minute. It's like the submersibles that go into the ocean. It's like they can go down this far, but then if you go down this far, it's a crunch. You will not have structural integrity. So please know, like, your true personality is not based upon like song lyrics, partially remembered speeches from movies or Shakespeare, or the things that you learned, whatever, in third grade. Like these are deep. You are built from deeper levels of self. Your definition of self is deeper than those surface level whimsies and idiocies. Your definition of self that is transportable and applicable to other places has a lot to do with personal integrity, like how you act in certain situations. So, like, are you the person who coils up the electrical cord because the job needs to get done? If you are, then you'll be that person here on Earth or in other times and places where you will have opportunities to fix things that need to be fixed. And if you're a shirker, if you're like, nope, no responsibility for me, then you're going to be that wherever you are in the world. Okay, good. Okay, so I want to go more assiduously through my notes, but I want to go more into what is difficult about this world is that you're a hot front meeting a cold front. You're in conflict and friction because you in this class are good people who are moving towards greater levels of self-exploration and self-illumination and evolving and getting faster. And there are some aspects and whole organisms in this world that the best that can be said about them is that they are not viable and that they are moving away from existence. And what they do, if they are good, is they do that fast. So, of lasagna, where you have this energizing motion when the singularity is at this point, you have a de-energizing motion when the singularity is at this point or in this position over here. And what good mistakes do is go to the entropy resolution of their consciousnesses as the sun, the stars, and the world of pure light is creating profusions of time that are these loops or potentials of narrative reality that are admittedly not perfect. Some of the organisms or structures that are created here in their imperfection do not return back. They do not go back home. They do not go back to the world of pure light that emanated them. They come into existence as flaws or mistakes or errors. And then what they have to do is go to entropy, which is quiet down, not get louder, not have more light, have less light. So now let's talk about, and I want to talk about so many different things, but let's go into the stages of matter. And I usually draw a little graph along the bottom of the screen, but I just don't want to have to touch technology right now. So let's imagine that what I've got down here is from one level that is super density, that is called Bose-Einstein condensate, all the way up to here, which is the world of pure light, the least dense, most highly energetic stuff you can have. So now let's go through the stages of matter. Densest stuff, BSC, Bose-Einstein condensate. I didn't say it right, BEC. Then solid matter, like stuff, like lasagna. This is plastic, it's stuff. And everything else in the room around me here, right? Then there's liquid. Here's a great example of a liquid. Dun! Then there's a gas. Here's a great example of a gas. I swear I will not pass gas. It's in the air. The air is gas. Then let's show you another example. I'm ready this time. I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. Bless me. I'm finally prepared for class, guys. Hold on a second. I do have to get rid of a notification. Plasma. Up from gas. When you superheat a gas, you get plasma, and that's what this is. There you go. That's plasma right there. A plasma is the flame of fire. It is a place where gases are superheated to the point where electrons can become liberated. Liberated women who are not just married or connected to one partner, but who can go with any partner they want to. So the electrons become liberated in the flame of fire, and they are not connected to only one atom or affiliated with only one atom. They are free to move around. And the key point is that they can carry an electrical charge. So the sun, as a plasma being, carries an electrical charge. Plasma is also cognitively self-aware. Of course, the cognitive self-awareness of my little big lighter is very different than the cognitive self-awareness of the giant massive being that is up there in the sky shining upon all of us right now. Okay. But please know that plasma is not the dead, stupid, inert is the word I'm thinking of, description that materialistic science gives to you. Plasma is a consciousness. It has levels of dynamism, and it hovers on the barrier between our definition of what is stuff versus what is pure energy. So, as I've described in my Path of Light class, the sun is a ball of consciousness, and it does deform or warp the fabric of space-time. Materialist science equates this as a type of gravity, like a type of heaviness, making the stretchy fabric of reality stretch downward. And it is that, but it can be described in that way as a heaviness, but it is more accurate as you're accelerating and getting into these higher levels to say that there's a relationship between gravity and light. Light is plasma, but light, so here on this graph, plasma, but it's also the beam, which is all the way at this side of the graph. And when you get to light that's a beam, it does not have mass. That means that it would not weigh anything. It would not make a stretchy deformation in the bed sheet of reality. So you have this already seemingly disconnect or seemingly irrationality in the making of the fabric of reality. Something that is made of pure light, but that seems to have a heftiness to it, enough to be able to create a gravity that is literally what upholds our whole reality. So, more accurate description is to say that the plasma light that is there has a cohesive quality to it, and it absolutely relates to the galactic center, which is the cohesive quality at the center of this galaxy. I usually portray it as a great conductor. Like I'm the conductor, tap, 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 like, okay, everybody get ready. We're going to make some music. That is who or what is at the center of the galaxy. And again, when I talk about these things, I'm really processing a lot of the stuff from the UFO community or the New Age world because they talked about the galactic center a lot. And so, I've always been trying to have my own description and have my own unique voice. But as I talk about these things now, I realize like, wow, a lot of the things that I said might have really been heard through the filter of what they have already implanted as an expectation in your mind. Okay. The galactic center is for real. The structure of reality does go that things emanate from the galactic center to the sun as your nearest star, and then to you. And then also there's the return journey of consciousness, energy, refocusing, and going back to the galactic center. Like it is not just a unidirectional thing where the conductor says, hey, you kid, play your music now. The conductor also hears you playing your music or experiencing your life. And then there's a response where the conductor might change aspects of your life, change aspects of your body, change your future, or request or require that you change an aspect of yourself, which is playing louder, playing softer, faster, slower, modifying what you are doing so that way you connect with the rest of the symphony more effectively. Okay. So you're in this world right now where you've been artificially separated from the conductor and the sun and divinity by that process of individuation in the first year, which is actually not that natural and has beyond the sense of learning your name and developing an identity relates very much to the implantation of language. And language is seen as a necessary, I don't want to call it an evil, but a necessary tool that like you use that tool, but it also kind of messes things up. Language is what allows you to connect your inside to your outside. When we have a wonderful person in your world who does not develop language skills, we call them developmentally disabled. And the problem is that they have so much multicolor experience going on inside, but they don't have a way to be able to communicate it to people outside of them. And that can be anything beyond their needs of like, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I want this, I prefer this. But they have real thoughts about the world, about who they are, about how they see the world, about what they think, and they can't actually get you to know about that stuff. It's like having a computer with no keyboard on it, no screen to be able to read what's going on in there. Tons of important stuff is going on inside of that apparatus, but you don't know about it because there's no interface. So you recognize from that like, hey, language is a pretty important interface. The ego and the level of yellow and the identity there is a pretty important interface. I'm glad I have one. But the only problem is it needs to be modified so that way you can turn it off and you can interface with the external world, but you can turn it off and continue to interface with divinity. So it went from Lemuria, where you're constantly connected to divinity and very much minimally aware of your own flesh, to Atlantis, where you're very much individual and much more aware of your own flesh, to this world where you're almost totally disconnected from divinity, highly aware of your own flesh to the point of only identifying, you're like, this is me. I'm this elbow. That's it. I'm only this. And then maybe only in a moment of religious ecstasies or, at a peak moment in your life to be like, I'm this elbow and I'm that tree also. I'm that butterfly also, but that only lasts for 1 second. And that's a very unnatural way to exist. That is not the intention for this level of reality. Not only language being inadequate and creating cognitive friction that takes you out of your divinely connected state, but many of the other, so it's not just talking, but the words, the information that is carried in the words is also very distancing from yourself as divinity. So you have to disabuse yourself of some of these notions of what might have come from government psyops or manipulative spiritual programs. But then also you have to disabuse yourself of these other notions that are about death and chronological aging and some of the other injustices that were communicated to you verbally about the shape of the world, like things about like, it ain't fair. Be like, as a little child, maybe you sometimes said, it's not fair. And did your mom or dad say, hey, kid, get used to it. Life isn't fair. Did they smoke a cigar? I hope your parents did not smoke a cigar like that. Your mom, it's not a very nice view. Like your mom was like smoking a cigar. No, but that's hilarious. But like a kid, life isn't fair. And also, if wishes were horses, beggars would ride, and many other things. So these are disempowerment structures that came in on the bridge of language, because language is so much more than just pass the ketchup, please. In ancient concurrent Atlantis, we use mostly telepathy, which is nonverbal, and we use that for our daily needs. Like if I needed you to give me some ketchup, I would use my mind, not my words, to ask you that. And my mind would not say, give Aurora ketchup, but I might send you an abstract concept of you giving me the ketchup and you would comprehend it, translate it, and then do the activity. But in ancient concurrent Atlantis, if we were having a very special moment, a special ritual, the ritual of the ketchup, and then I would orate to you and I would say, please pass the ketchup. And you would be like, Aurora, I am now bequeathing you with the magical ketchup. Like it would be a big deal because in that level of reality, to vibrate the atmosphere with our words and our mouth is a big deal. It reverberates through the ages. Ketchup, 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 ketchup. And they're like, it's too loud. Stop it. You and your condiments, you're too loud. But we are very selective about the things that we say. Because really think about that. If you go to the Grand Canyon and you say something silly like, like your butt, your butt, your butt, it echoes for forever. You want to be really mindful about the things that you say with your words. So in this world, people use language so carelessly. It is so ubiquitous. We do use it casually to be able to ask for the ketchup, but also sometimes people say things not knowing that it has a big impact on reality. And it does leave an imprint, like an indelible imprint. And sometimes people say things that are cruel but also sometimes people say things that are not optimum reality generation words and they hang there. And that might be things about their own self-doubt or their own worthlessness or their own ineptitude or lack of success. Like if people say like, I'm such a giant piece of doo-doo, I'll never be anything. And then that just hangs in the air. Like these are really, really big things. So you start to understand that. And then also I've spoken about how when I'm in this class, especially like not so much in my casual day-to-day conversations, but definitely when I'm in this class, I really choose my words very selectively based upon my assessments in each moment of the future, of the impact that I'm having. Like if I say this, then you will think this. And if I say this, then you will think this. And if I say this, then you will go down like the right road or the wrong road. So I'm very infinitely aware of how much I'm influencing a person's future possibilities with the words that I say right now. And this is part of why I'm very selective with them. Okay. The ability to communicate is beyond verbal because it also includes like making music that can be instrumental or drawing a picture or something like that, being symbolic, symbolic dance also. These are ways of being able to make a bridge from the abstract potentials of what's inside of you to the experienced reality outside of you. You spend a lot of your early formative years developing that definition. The stuff that is me versus the stuff that is not me, the stuff that's inside of me versus the stuff that is outside of me. And then in your spiritual development, it is necessary to move beyond those materialistic definitions of self. Because with Flying Rainbow Lasagna and other levels of self-cultivation and exploration in manifestation or your direct connection to materiality, you start to realize that the inside becomes the outside and the outside becomes the inside, and you're part of a continuum. And that you're also non-arbitrarily connecting your inside to your outside. So that means not everything that is inside belongs outside, including you might have some private stuff or some disgusting stuff or some fears that you don't want to be externalized into the world. And that is very, very fair. So in the singularity, there is the subset of stuff that should never be emanated into existence. The stuff that should never be stuff. The no thing that unexists. You can similarly recognize that there are some things that are inside of you that are better left unspoken or unshared, or that they really don't belong in existence and you don't want to externalize them. And then you can contrast that with the things that you really do want to externalize. Our levels of communication in this time and place have everything to do with the things that you intentionally wish to externalize. Like, so for me, when I first came here, I had very bad language skills. I had a lot of brain damage and I did not have like a good vocabulary or a good way of being able to put words together. And it's only been through like trying very hard over more than 2 decades that I have figured out how to like move my flapping of my moving mouth parts, connect my mouth to my brain, choose the right words, and make things make sense. And when I first came here and tried to talk with people about these deeper concepts, like I had these concepts the whole entire time, but I did not have the vocabulary or the language skills to talk about them. And like, I very much think like people thought I was crazy. Or they just didn't know what I was talking about because I'd be like, blah, 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 Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And they would be like, who are you? And what are you talking about? And what is this? So I went through my own journey, as each one of you did in early childhood, to figure out like, how do I talk about things and get people to understand me? I had to do something similar. And so I had to do a lot of self-education where I learned the meaning of different words. Like I told you, I didn't know what harmonics meant, but I had created some artwork and was in a group show, and someone came up to me and they said, "You are painting harmonics." And I was like, I did that a lot when I first came here. I was like, And then I looked it up. And so I did a lot of self-education to be able to try to learn these words and build a vocabulary. And that's also where I did some self-research into math and science and how humans talk about the fabric of space-time. So please know, I don't really claim those levels of education, but I've been trying to find the words that give us this type of concept. So one of these words is solenoid, and that represents what happens when you take a dipole magnet, which is shaped exactly like this. You have the North Pole and the South Pole, and you take those two seemingly polar opposites and you bend them around until they touch. And then what you get is a solenoid. And so you guys do know that magnets, like they're north and they're south, they're attractive. So a north and a north is going to be repellent. Get away from me. But a north and a south is going to be attractive. They have complementary qualities that bolster each other together. So they want to connect, but the aspect that is difficult is that they're 180 degrees opposite to one another. So you're going from something that is a line and a simplified level of reality, and you have to add another dimension to make this happen. So just like when you have a flat plane, this is two-dimensional, it's flat plane. But if I'm going to add another dimension, what I do is I fold the piece of paper and now it's up into the third dimension. I have just created an additional dimension. It gets an additional degree of freedom. If we want to create a solenoid from a dipole magnet, we have to add an additional dimension to it and make it possible for those seemingly polar opposites to come together and to create this new shape. When that happens, it does not pretend away qualities. It doesn't make it like, oh, like north doesn't exist or south doesn't exist or positive does not exist or negative does not exist, because I don't want this to be misperceived as an abnegation of evil or pretending it all away and saying, oh, well, now that we're just combining good and evil, we just have this new thing that's called Schmeevil, and it's not like anything else and everything is fine. That would be very wrong and totally irresponsible for me if I told you any of those things. So please do not believe any of those things. Imagine I'm giving you a recipe and it says in the recipe, like, whatever you do, like, do not do this, do not do this, do not do this. I'm like, good. I told you all the ways not to cook the eggs. Okay, now let us go into how we actually cook the eggs. So what you're doing with flying rainbow lasagna is creating this similar level of resolving duality by bringing together seemingly opposites. But that doesn't mean that evil doesn't exist. And in this case, in the world that you're in, the things that are evil are the things that don't want to learn, don't want to change, don't want to grow and or be resolved by what is happening. The things that are stuck, that want to maintain the status quo, or that, like the putti stuck on the membrane of death, that they just want to vampire or parasite enough off of others to keep them in a semi-viable state so that they don't get fully resolved, which is what entropy is. So the people that are totally wrong and that are going in a wrong direction and who admit to their mistakes, they are not evil. Like a raving drug addict in the parking lot. I always think of that song lyric because he's like raving about Jesus or something like that. And if you were able to like sit down quietly and cognitively talk to that person, be like, look, like, you're not Jesus, you're on drugs, you've totally messed up your life, you're not doing the right thing. If it could get through, that person would be like, oh my God, like, I totally made all these mistakes. I need to change immediately. Or if there's no hope, then they should just be like, I just need to go out of existence. Stop breathing, stop anything, and go out of existence. That is what a good, extremely flawed, extremely mistaken person or particle of soul would do. An individual. Okay, we're talking about your identity as ocean of consciousness that has individuated to this point for purposes of learning. And some of these pieces of yourself are so effed up that when you give them the estimation of what's going on, they're like, oh, I'm so effed up. I can never un-F myself. And I need to go out of existence immediately. Yes, that is what some flawed, the resolution of some extremely flawed consciousnesses does look like that. And in my innocence, I have tried to talk to some of these very resistant consciousnesses, and hope to get a similar response. I don't always get that response. So at this point, I don't do conversations like that. But there was a time when I was very genuine and I would talk to any of these extremely flawed and mistaken, demonically possessed, sometimes lettered agency occupying or government position having people, and try to talk to them and be like, look, you're very, very extremely mistaken and you have achieved soul debts that you can never repay. Go to Entropy now, because that's really the only thing that can happen that is good for you. Sometimes they would get it, but not anymore. Let's talk about entropy and how it relates to, and I'll get back to that concept too. Entropy and how it relates to the Bose-Einstein condensate. Bose-Einstein condensate, at this level of the density diagram, it is ultimate density. It is even more dense than the level of density we know as solid matter. So if humans look at solid matter as like something that is very unmoving and an imprisonment, this would be like the ultimate imprisonment, because it means like you can't move at all. Like there's one atom and no other place to be in a Bose-Einstein condensate. In fact, it is, and I don't want you to imprint upon matter being a prison either. So I'm sorry if I was so messed up on that. But let's go to the meat and potatoes of this, which is a super dense form of matter where all of the atoms sit on top of each other or stand on the same footprint. So here you have a solid. The atoms are all next to each other and smushed together, but not on top of each other. In a Bose-Einstein condensate, it is so dense. Imagine the crushingness, making all of these little tiny individuals stand on top of each other, and they stop being individuals. And this is the worst garbage of your world. The raving madmen, the violence salesmen, the unrecalcitrant evil, the things that are destructive just to be destructive jerk faces. All of those fragments that can never reaccelerate. They can never repay their debts. Things and people that have done things that are so bad that they can never get out of the hole. They have gotten credit card debt or student loan debt that's so crushing, they will never pay it off ever. And there is no such thing as a jubilee. That is my gentle critique of Christianity, the soft but incredibly flawed concept, or the accommodative but incredibly flawed behavioral concept of a soul debt jubilee. That's like, well, you killed a million billion people, but your lucky day, we're having a jubilee. That means we're wiping your record and you get to start from the beginning again today. Like, that is wrong. You cannot do that, because that means a million billion people or blades of grass or organisms, they died. And their deaths were real. They really effing suffered. They really effing died. And it's not fair to all of them to be like, well, today we're having an all-you-can-eat sale and you get your jubilee and you can go on as a soul. That's so wrong and so distressing. So please know that I am here as a cosmic law enforcement agent, like the police. I make sure that people who are really committing crimes really do get arrested and really do go to jail and get what they deserve. And there is not such a thing as going like here in your world, in the very flawed material world, people go to the judges all the time. And the judge is like, time served. Get out of my courtroom. Like they just let the guy go, even though he's a murderer and he killed 5 people. We live in a world where there's an enormous amount of miscarriage of justice. But please know that in the levels of pure energetic abstraction that uphold the fabric of space-time, this is non-negotiable. There is not a way to get out of jail free. There is not a way to avoid the debt that you have created. Like, that does not exist. And the assertions of those things are very, very flawed. And those are groomings from other unhealthy directions, because what they make you think is that you can get a bunch of debt and then not be weighed down by it. And there is not a truth. That is not the way that the world actually works. So if somebody told you that or gave you that, gave you that impression. If somebody gave you that impression, you must disabuse yourself of that notion because it's going to kill you as a soul. You're going to be like, don't worry. I got this, guys. Hold my beer. I can kill a million billion people. I'm going to get forgiven. Like this is the idea of flawed Christianity as it is presented. And the flawed Christians are like, I know you killed a million billion people, but I forgive you. Have a hug. Hug. Come to church. You're going to be okay. And I'm like, that is not how this works. And it means that I am in a difficult position because I would like to be able to be one of these people that's like, oh, yeah, it's the end times. Y'all better get right with Jesus and just make that kind of like my, whatever, my pattern, how I talk to people about things. But I'm like, wow, that would be easy and might be like popular in some ways, but that would be very erroneous and could make people go in the wrong direction where you think like, oh yeah, like, I do this and that bad stuff. And then there's Jesus gonna forgive all of it. Dusting my hands. And then if you get some kind of a problem, like with cosmic debt or cosmic law enforcement, just dust your hands and be like, look, Jesus is taking care of it. I'm fine. I'm like, it doesn't work that way. Like you can't move on. Be like, but the dusting of the hands in Jesus. Like, no, sorry, that's a lie. So these are all very unhealthy and dysfunctional postures for your soul. If the theme is coming through, it has everything to do with like who are you in the context of the world? Like, are you a human? Are you an alien? What happened? Why are you here in your life? What happens after you die? What is it to be a good person? These are foundational and existential questions that are being addressed here. And that there is a very real thing of what is the math of being a good person. It's not just a moralistic vagary. Like, well, sometimes being a good person is this. Like, in these cultures, being a good person means never eating meat. And in these cultures, being a good person means always eating meat. Like, wow, being a good person is so random and arbitrary. I'm like, no, that is not true. Being a good person across any culture and any time and space does have certain foundational truths that are going to be truthful, like 1+1=2, no matter what and no matter where you are. And you are in this exploratory, university of the universe in order to be able to explore and embody those truths. But one of the truthful aspects that I'm here to communicate to you is that these are non-transferable and non-arbitrary, and that you can't just use words to wipe away or pretend away energetic debts. And that's big stuff. It's like if you do something that's an energetic debt and you have really hurt someone else, and then you say with your words like, I apologize. It's like that does nothing and really doesn't change the fabric of reality at all. So that is also a huge error in the Christian doctrine of talking about forgiveness. Forgiveness is not simply coming to someone that you've hurt and saying like, I did something wrong, forgive me. And the other person says, I forgive you. Like, no, real forgiveness has to do with a change on the behavioral level of the person who did something that was wrong. You must admit that you did something wrong, change the behavior, and also pay the debt. These are the rules. These are cosmic law rules for what is forgiveness. So once again, forgiveness is not the easy, facile, social magic wand that it is often misportrayed as in surface level Christianity. Forgiveness is when a particle or a person of consciousness recognizes that they have made mistakes and gone in the wrong direction. And then they're like, I did the wrong math. What do I do? Now I would like to fix it in some way. And so, the recognition that you've done something wrong and then the search for the corrective experience. This is what is necessary for actual forgiveness. And for some people, the answer is you have made mistakes that are so big that you got like $1 million in credit card debt and you only make $1 a day. It means like you're going to work for a million years, you're never going to pay this debt. You're never going to get out of here. You're never going to do it. And when that is the true realization that a soul makes, it means that there is no return to this level of energy or acceleration. There's only being in the physical and devolving or slowing down. And what that happens is here's the solid level, and then here's the Bose-Einstein condensate going from solid to Bose-Einstein condensate. That's their only path. Their only pathway is to decelerate, not to accelerate. And in that decelerization, I don't know if that's the word, but in that getting slower and total stoppage, you get to unity consciousness. But you can't be like moving at a tiny, creeping, slow rate. You have to be really stopped in time. This is the 0 degrees Kelvin. And what happens at the Bose-Einstein condensate when there's zero movement and zero heat in this state of total frozenness, the individuation of each atom stops. And what you have is multiple atoms acting as if they are one atom, a unity consciousness. And acting must be in air quotes because it doesn't do anything. In fact, as I consult my notes, because I wrote it much better at other times, it is a non-motivational state. So you're moving from these levels of safety and passivity where you were in Lemuria or an infant of consciousness not having to do stuff. And if you are accelerating and becoming more responsible, self-responsible, then you move towards doing more stuff. But if you are decelerating and you are not moving towards greater levels of responsibility, what you are doing is getting slower. I'm just trying to do too many things at once and see if I can do it. It's here. Good versus evil. I'll get there. Oh, so difficult. Sorry. There we go. Found it at the end. In the Bose-Einstein condensate, all of the atoms are slowed down and they smear together into one smeared out wave form of possibilities. They behave as one atom. They achieve oneness. It is matter slowed down to the state of oneness. So as I was mocking the concept of being stuck in the materiality, imprisonment of materiality, it is an imprisonment if you're not in freedom when you're here, and it is an imprisonment if you don't emerge from it. And both of those things relate to people who are, or particles who are extremely, extremely flawed. And when that happens, and they have achieved these millions of dollars of soul indebtedness, there is not a way to emerge from matter. There's not a way to accelerate beyond those levels of debt and emotional slowness, or depression might even be an apt term here. And so the only solution is to slow down fully and go into a completely restful state of non-motivation. That's what I was looking for. This description of what I have in the, I don't have it. I'll just say it for you instead of trying to read. The description of what it's like in the Bose-Einstein state of non-being is non-motivational, non-sentient, non-self-aware, non-moving through time, no heat, no intelligence, no self-awareness. So it is a removal of awareness and a removal of cognitive structure from those extremely flawed pieces of self or particles that have no hope from ever emerging from matter and returning to light. That no hope part is pretty important because a lot of the doctrine of Christianity is like the doctrine of redemption, where it's saying like there's hope, but I'm here to tell you like there's no hope. Sorry. And I hope that that's funny. No, but for real. Because like you have all these different people that go to church. Maybe some of them were violent or used drugs or something like that. But when they go to church, everyone is like, come on in, have a hug, have some donuts and coffee, infinite forgiveness. And I'm here to say like that is a flawed proposal. But then that puts you in a difficult position of having to set boundaries that are social boundaries between those of you who have the capacity to accelerate to light and those of you whose quotient of slowness or frictionness will keep you stuck in materiality. I'm swallowing here because I'm like, gulp. Like, I have to tell you this. Like, it would be so much easier if I could just be like, just follow the Bible, get right with Jesus. But I'm like, nope. Some of you are able to accelerate, and some of you have to decelerate into a Bose-Einstein condensate because you have no hope. And like, just know that that is accurate. And it will change your worldview when you walk around looking at people in the world and you're like, of these community members, how many of these souls have the potential to accelerate and move beyond the limitations of matter and also reconnect to the oceans of consciousness and do oneness at the level of infinity and energy. And then how many of these community members in my supermarket or at the park or whatever have no hope? And they have achieved soul debt and done stuff that is so bad that all that can be hoped for them is that they will lose their energy as fast as possible and go into a nice, restful Bose-Einstein condensate state and not be destabilizing the fabric of space-time for the other people around us. Because that is also something like once you recognize that you are an innate flaw or a mistaken bad math of consciousness that has gone into a cul-de-sac in the roads of time, and that you don't have a way to get out of the cul-de-sac, the most merciful thing you can do is go out of existence. Think of like a red blood cell in your physical body, and you're like, I'm supposed to circulate to the heart. And instead, something happened and there was a bruise, and you're like, you're stuck over here. And you're like, never getting back to the heart. I'm dying. I'm dying over here. Like the best thing you can do is like die and stop blocking things up for the rest of the blood that can actually get through there and get to where it needs to go. And this is really truthful. Like some people that were mass murderers, like they've achieved a debt. They've done something so bad that they can never get past it. And this is in direct conflict to the doctrines of infinite forgiveness and the doctrines of redemption that the traditional like surface level of Christian teaching in the church teaches you. So my life would be easier if I could just be like, yep, just get right with Jesus and you'll get forgiven. So I'm like, nope, that actually might not happen for you. If you killed a million billion people or did something really, really wrong, that might not happen for you. Like, how about some evil scientist who created some mRNA self-amplifying nanotechnology that ended up causing a lot of deaths in the world? Do you think that person should pay off their debts and then go live in heaven? Or has that person killed so many people and destroyed the fabric of space-time so much and caused so much harm and evil that they pretty much have to go to a Bose-Einstein condensate? I would say Bose-Einstein condensate for that person. I would say they have to go into a state of superdensity. But let's also talk about the quality of existence at that state of superdensity. It is not a moment of friction and burning, which is what the traditional Christian view of hell is. It is a restful state. So in the membrane of death over here, you've got a lot of energy flowing, and the residual consciousnesses that are there can't use the energy, and it creates painful friction. They're like, oh, this feels terrible. Stop hitting me with so much love and light. This feels terrible. To contrast, a Bose-Einstein condensate does not have any amount of love or light flowing into it. There's no energy there. And the flying rainbow lasagna, and what is unique about this is that it allows you to send those consciousnesses to entropy fast, as opposed to having to wait for the slow, kind of like imagine like the brakes are going over billions of years, the slow fade out on these consciousnesses that would happen inexorably, but over 13 billion years. And during that time of these consciousnesses slowing down, your life would not be optimum. You would be living with a lot of garbage, a lot of friction, a lot of drag. And think like if you need to have 100 units of energy, but you have 11 units devoted to friction and drag for 13 billion years, it's like you'll never be whole. And you know what those 11 units are? It's trauma. It's someone who abused or violated you in some way and hasn't resolved that. And then you go through life as a partial person, or a soul going through existence as a partial soul because that person or consciousness hasn't fixed the mistake of stealing 11 units of energy from you. You should be like this. I want my 11 units of energy back and I want it now. I don't want to have to wait 13 billion years. It's like the ultimate lawsuit. You know, they're like, yeah, one day you'll get your class action lawsuit and you'll get all of that money that was stolen from you. And it will be literally like at the last moment of reality, at the end of time. Like, here's all that money that was stolen from you, and now it's the end of time. Dun, 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 you're done. Like, that would be the ultimate in ironic misfulfillment of your wishes. And that would also be a great unfairness that happens due to time. So, like if you have something now, it's justice. If I make you wait 13 billion years, that is injustice. Like if you order something at my cafe and I bring it to you in 5 minutes, you're like, you did a good job. If you order something and I bring it to you in 13 years, you're like, you did a bad job. And I died of starvation because you did not actually bring me the thing that I needed. So please know the relevance of delivery matters a lot in terms of soul restoration, the restoration of your soul energy. Big, 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 big stuff. I know. And so a lot of my critique of Christianity is that it's grooming to keep you in a victimhood mode of supposedly forgiving those who have done wrong or been sinful towards you. But really all it does is keep you yoked or quantum entangled to them because the things haven't really been resolved. It's fake jubilee. Okay. Sorry, I'm collecting my thoughts over here. I want to talk about a lot of things. Flying rainbow lasagna and this shape as beyond the concept of sending some. Okay, let's return to the shape. Oh my God. Let's return to the concept of good and evil. When you do flying rainbow lasagna, what you're doing in your own body is sending aspects of your own self that are not ideal and that are not good math to entropy. That is actually good. You're 100% good when you do that. You're not like, well, I'm good and I'm integrating my evil side and I'm going to bend my north and my south poles around. I'm going to make them kiss and then I'm going to be 100% good. The answer is you are 100% good through your willingness to grow and change and remove the mistaken parts of yourself. The parts of you that would be considered evil would be any part of you that you keep in denial or that refuses to change or that you refuse to recognize needs to be changed in some way. Those things would be like, like the really bad math that you refuse to look at and actually do anything about. So that part confused you. If I stuck with the other part, it was much clearer. Okay, so inside of yourself, you're like, okay, like I made this mistake. I was unkind towards this person. You're like, then I need to pay that debt. I need to resolve that. Oh, this also is really not helping at all. Like as I say more words, like your clarity moves away. Okay, so because I want to make this very, very clear that in order to do flying rainbow lasagna, what you have to do is purge your system of evil, not integrate evil in the system. What purging your system of evil looks like is removing all of the parts of yourself or members of your society who are unrecalcitrant and who do not want to change, grow, or evolve. Everything else that is here, even if it is mistaken, is part of goodness in that it recognizes it's a mistake and goes out of existence. I'm a mistake. Oops, sorry about that. I go out of existence now. And that it is a self-pruning or a self-purging. You got it. And it does relate to pathogenic cells in your own body. So in your own body, if you have a cell that is unaware of its own cancerous nature, it's like, I'm not cancer. I'm going to make more of me. And you're like, stop it. You're killing me. And then some cells realize that they are pathogenic and you're like, hey, you're not acting right. And he's like, you know something? You're right. I'm not acting right. I'm going to do apoptosis this minute and take myself out of existence. These are the differences between true goodness or true evil. In your life, you can make a mistake. You can make a behavioral mistake or you can make a bad math mistake, and admitting to your mistake and recognizing it and changing it or going out of existence if you have created a debt that's too big for you to pay is good. What is bad is to say you never made a mistake, or you refuse to change from your mistake, or you wish to be accommodated and still woven into the fabric of existence in your extremely mistaken formfulness. That is not acceptable to do that. And so you have a lot of philosophical tension in the world if you walk around thinking like, I deserve to be forgiven for my mistakes by God, by the cosmic infrastructure, by everything that is bigger and larger than me, when what is actually truthful is that you deserve to be eradicated out of existence because of these mistakes. But what you can do is eradicate the portions of yourself that are hugely erroneous and vivify and retain the portions of yourself that are correct and that have a viability for the future. And this goes for yourself as a body with cells, yourself as a species with a planet, yourself as God consciousness exploring who you are in the world. You are allowed to be creating this slightly flawed expansion of your life and of yourself, and then have some parts of yourself return home, and some parts of yourself are purged. So when you do flying rainbow lasagna, you need to get rid of the parts of yourself that refuse to grow or change or be resolved or be amputated. And then in the parts of yourself that are willing to be assessed and changed, you bring them into these new patterns. I stopped trying because you guys got it. You're like, I got it. So good. So I could stop saying things. Okay, good. So in my notes, I wrote this down really clear on purging evil, not fusing with it, because this relates to some of the religious programming and grooming, and also religious flavored grooming for meeting extraterrestrial or higher consciousness cultures. Like if you meet something that is evil, you should not fuse with it. You should not internalize it. The nanotechnology has absolutely been an example of fusing with evil. Not only human flesh fusing with a type of metal alloy that should not be inside of you, but the end result of the infestation of the hardware and the software being an artificial removal of your boundaries from other humanity, creating a humanity slush fund where you would be brought down to the average of everyone in existence being put together in the soup pot. I call it the hot tub from hell because you are also sharing fungal infections with all of these very questionable people. You would be amalgamated into an average with raving drug addicts from parking lots. And I'm like, I am not with that guy. Don't judge me based on his behavior. He is doing his own crazy madman thing. I'm doing me. But with the satellites and the nanotechnology, it created artificial connections between people's biological structures. So that guy might be taking drugs and going down the tubes, but then he's going to take energy from you in order to not die. Think about that as an enablement. In your world, that enablement is sometimes shown as being a good person. Like that poor guy, he's got no money and he's on drugs. Give him some social services so he won't die. And what that means is you're taking energy from people who have their stuff together and are working and are contributory, and giving that energy towards someone who does not have their SHIT together, who is not contributory. And if you really brought this to its logical conclusion, you would take all of the millions of dollars from people who work hard and have jobs and funnel them all directly to the drug addicts on the street, who will then happily pay millions of dollars to purchase drugs and self-destruct. And then they will have no body and will be dead from self-destruction. And these people will also have no home, no bank account, and no life force, and no vitality, and no hope for the future because they sent all of their energy to support parasites. All right? You don't want to do that in your soul journey of your consciousness. You do not want to lavish time, energy, affection, and attention on souls that have achieved a debt that is so deep that they cannot emerge from it, and also who are actively engaged in self-destruction. They are engaged in the erasure of themselves, in the negation of their own story, in bringing themselves out of reality. What you can do is help them go out of reality. Take energy away from them. send them to entropy. And that is actually the kindest or most merciful thing you can do to them. And that also resolves them so that they won't be horribly tortured in a world of pure friction where they are left in regret of all of their life decisions that brought them to that moment, and then they just exist as a type of horrible, grotesque hall of infinite regrets. Okay, I have a few more things, and then we'll wrap things up. In talking about singularity, I have emphasized a lot the concept of this shape being in a context and then moving this up and down in the context in order to create this shape. But you can also create the flying rainbow lasagna shape by putting this shape into a context and having it stay in one place, but moving everything else around it. I'm not going to make this thing jump up and down. I'm going to make this thing stay put. I'm going to make the whole entire rest of the world, the planet, the fabric of reality, jump up and down. This is the moving and reshaping of time around this. And that happens too. So sometimes you have the singularity that is incomprehensibly jumping back and forth between these two positions of entropy going out of existence and energy staying in existence, accelerating and continually being in existence. But sometimes what you are doing is achieving that by keeping the singularity in one place and moving the rest of the context around singularity. And when you do that, that is how you send some of these non-viable people and individuals into entropy, into a non-existence state. Some of what we're talking about is achieving a higher perspective in order to resolve duality. So when you do a solenoid and you say the North and the South combine together and there's no dualistic opposition, but that is only achieved after you purge the world of evil. So we could do that type of a solenoid in places like ancient concurrent Atlantis, where I talk about the ascension process there as being like a confrontation with people that you sometimes had ego difficulties with, but you both were correct. Here in this world, you sometimes have confrontations with people that you have ego difficulties with. There is a very real sense of one person is right and one person is wrong. I'm like, 1 + 1 = 2. And the other person is like, 1 + 1 = 7. I'm like a raging axe murderer. Like, they are clearly wrong. So for you in this world to grow as a soul, it is liberating for you to hear me bring this truthful message that some people here are wrong. You cannot be like, oh, well, we're all right. I accommodate all of your viewpoints. Everybody's got something to say. Everybody's got something to contribute. No, there are some people and concepts here who are actively wrong, and they should not be here. It is, I think, some of the most difficult things that you will ever have to learn as a soul. In other time places, we're like, okay, everything that's here is here for a reason. I have something to learn from all of it. That's what the ascension process and confrontation was like. In this world, you're like, some stuff I'm learning from and is ascension, and some stuff is garbage. And some stuff, when it confronts you and it's like, blah, 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 instead of going through a whole emotional journey, you can just be like, 1 + 1 does not equal 7, and you're a pile of garbage, and you shouldn't even be in existence. And you send that stuff to entropy. This is the ultimate in meta liberation, because any consciousness that would be stuck in that container of wrongness as garbage would want to be liberated from its garbageness by going into entropy, which is going into a non-existent state. You guys just got it. Everything else I say is just going to be cherry on top of the cherry of doing this. So in the dance of DNA, when you're doing Flying Rainbow Lasagna, there's a lot of artistry and precision. I hope that that is also very clear. Like, there are so many mistakes in this musical composition that it takes an enormous amount of personal artistry and creativity to even bring it together into something that sounds somewhat like music. Your social sculpture that you're looking at right now is so erroneous. Like, you have very little of reward of the righteous, people acting from human decency and even just common sense. And you have a lot of rewarding of the worst behavior, the most illogical, emotionally illogical, and intellectually illogical behavior, and the most amounts of like shoulder shrugging garbage. You're like, I do not understand this at all. I don't know why this is that way. In our dance of DNA, when we do flying rainbow lasagna, we are the complete antithesis of that. I am very selective and very positively accurate when I take time from over here, scoop it, and bring it over here and do something with it. Or, like in my dance, sometimes I grab time or move it with my arm like this, or my arm moves through time like this. I am being very selective and intentional in how I reshape time with my body movements and with my DNA. Let's talk about DNA because you are really a vibration in a sea of vibrations. And when I talk about that, that sounds like more Gaiam slop. I'm starting to realize like, wow, like they really jumped up the place a lot, but it is truthful. We really are. Your DNA is a vibration that's going like this all the time. Then your cytoplasms of your body are also a vibration. And then also what you're doing with your presence in the rest of the world is a vibration. And what you receive in terms of the raw uncollapsed or uninterpreted waveforms of reality, that is also a vibration. So when you came here as a child, you had no barrier and no distinguishment from yourself. You just blended into the rest of the sea of vibration. Then for a little while, you're like, I'm me, not this stupid sea of vibration. Like, my name is Aurora and I wear a red shirt and my dog is named Cheeky and like everybody else get away from me. But then on the other side of that journey, you in meta liberation are restored and reconnected to the world of the continuum of consciousness and all of these other aspects of yourself. But you do that having purged the world of evil or that which should not exist. So don't do that prematurely, but do that at the correct time and do it in the correct patterning that brings you towards greater levels of truth. So this is also where I teach you about epigenetics. That is the code that rules the code, or the dance of, and have a better way of saying it, choosing which tendrils of your body are even going to dance. I didn't have a better way of saying it. In your DNA, your information self is curled up like the scrolls of ancient papyrus. And if you want to read what is happening in your DNA and create those events in reality, the scrolls have to be unrolled. If you keep information tightly scrolled up, I'm just going to drink water here. The tightly scrolled up information exists as a potential that is unrealized. And you can live a very good life with those things unspoken, but as potentials, as opposed to things that have to come forward into the world that you will experience. And a lot of what you're doing in your DNA is to turn down the volume and to silence the non-optimum genetic behaviors. In your world, when you send a person or an organization to entropy, you are similarly turning down the volume and silencing something that is a pathogenic person or behavior system or organization. So I keep on using the example of like a raving drug addict in a parking lot. But what is pathogenic about them? It's not only a person who, like a cancer cell, is acting badly and emitting toxins everywhere, but it's also the behavioral end result of everything that was toxic or erroneous in their life that they responded to with substance abuse as opposed to with something more constructive. And then it is also the toxic social fabric event where you see someone who is degraded and who is like acting badly but not yet dead in a public place, careening around and spiraling wildly. Because like that also has an impact on you. When we see other cells of the body that are becoming pathogenic and mutating and acting badly, it has an impact on you. You're like, I don't want to be like that, and I don't like having that around. That is correct. That stuff shouldn't be there. You're literally looking at a version of reality that should never exist. That guy should never exist in that form. He should never have had those things happen to him. He should never have taken those substances. He should not be standing there raving at you. And then that has an impact on you. And then when you go through your ascension experience, you're going to have to process that and be like, and that guy that I saw raving on a parking lot one time, and what was that about? Like, you have to process these things. So I'll wrap it up on that because I started out this class today really processing with you some of my own perspectives at not drug addicted, stark raving lunatics in the world, but people who are destabilized, people who were making life choices that I don't agree with, that they were taking in thought forms or affiliating with different things that are not life positive and not behaviorally constructive. And when I look at a lot of the people that were in that UFO conference scene, and that was almost 10 years ago, and then where they have gone or what impact it has had on their life, I think that the UFO conference stuff did not add to their acceleration, did not add to their longevity or their coherence or their health as a person. I think in many ways it dragged them down and made them more dysfunctional and less healthy as a person. So I think anyone who was influenced, you just owe yourself the assessment to go through the things that you took in, like maybe you ate at a restaurant and you're like, some of this was nutritive and I'm happy to keep that in my body, but some of this stuff was not nutritive and I want to purge it out because it was whatever, like an extra sauce or an extra flavor that was put on top that does not serve me at all. And when you do that, you are acting as a good particle. You're like, yeah, I want to accelerate. I want to drop the ballast, drop the things that are untruthful, drop that which was never nutritive, but I thought it was good at the time, and it doesn't serve me in going forward. These are the best things you can do to have a clear palette in actually connecting with supernatural or higher dimensional consciousnesses. And like I have said to you recently, I don't know what we will find up there, out there when we take away the satellite infrastructure and clear out the nanotechnology from the body. I don't know who is still left. I don't know who's still left standing or what the situation is like out there, but you at least you'll be prepared for these levels of either critique of whoever is out there or reconnection with them. You will be reconnecting with yourself if there's anything there, and or we might be in this moment of emanating something new, which I think would be the ultimate and most positive thing. Everything else is obsolete. A lot of it has been wiped away and we're not yet aware of it. A lot of it I'm willing to let go of in the space of being able to create something completely new. So I do have some favorite outfits, like if we're cleaning out the closet, like I'd like to keep that, and that. Those were good things, but I might not be able to keep any of those things. But it feels better if I know that I'm just about to custom design a whole new wardrobe and a whole new creation. So in the cosmic family of supernatural creatures and otherworldly or extraterrestrial creatures, there were good creatures. There were good civilizations. There were nice outfits and things that I would have liked to grandfather in to the future. I don't know if we will be able to do that, but what we will be able to do is to create from this moment going forward. What would you like to create? What is the type of civilization you would like to create? Who would you like to be? Who would be your offspring, your progeny? Who would your children look like? What would you like to teach them? What are the things that are good values that you would like to pass on and have them make a part of themselves as a foundation to build their culture on? These are the best questions to ask. And I think I have all of the right answers, but I will say maybe you should also come up with your own right answers too, because I don't pretend to have the only right answers, but like I think I'm pretty good at building civilizations, and I think I know what are good foundational values to bring to the future. And we should definitely be talking about and thinking about these things. Okay. I have so many other things to talk about in terms of the dimensionality, adding another dimension, the mechanics of these types of things, and even the wonderful animated movie called Flatland. If you haven't checked it out, you should check it out. It's on YouTube and it is like very, very cute. It is about the journey of a two-dimensional cognitive creature that one day has a religious experience and comes forward into the third dimension. And you will relate to that character if you watch it, because the guy goes from being like a flat circle like this into being able to see a sphere. And he kind of like touches it and feels it and goes all the way around it in the higher dimensions. And in that, humorous scene in the animation movie, he's like, oh, wondrous sphere, sphere of all infinite roundness, oh, roundness of round one. And the sphere is like, don't worship me. Like, everybody here is shaped like this. I think that there's a lot of deep interdimensional truth there, that humans have had religious experiences when they go into the next highest dimension and they find the creatures or inhabitants there, and they are ready to worship them as if they are perfected and omniscient creatures, when they are not. They are simply versions of self in the next highest dimension. And once you start to recognize that there's still levels of self-exploration and divine perfection to go through, that then you become collaborators in partnership, not a subjugating yourself to then worship this other thing that is that you have elevated it to a greater level. So you'll get there. All right. Everybody's tired. Everybody's hungry, thirsty, tired. You need to throw your books and pencils in the air. My voice is definitely tired. Integrate all the things we've talked about here today. Joyce says, thank you, Professor. Great class. Love, appreciation, and gratitude to you, and hugs to Cheeky too. Thank you. Thank you for being an excellent student in my class. Thank you always, guys, for including Cheeky. She is, I don't know if you can see over here. She is sleeping in her dog bed very peacefully right here. We will complete our class. We will have snacks, and we'll maybe go outside into the garden or maybe do something else. And Michelangelo says, thank you, Master Aurora. Love to all. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who's in this class. You guys are the good students of reality. I am truthful about this. You are like the best of humanity. You're not going in the bin. You are the guys. You're the keepers. You're the keepers. You contain the viable, positive characteristics of soul and of consciousness that can and should move on. And your job is to purge yourself of non-viable and evil stuff, and to purge your planet of non-viable and evil stuff. And the energetic weather report, like I'll leave on a very good positive note, is we are finally coming back into those moments that I felt like in 2019 before they turned on the satellites. At times I felt like infinite gratitude, like the light flowing in from the garden, the greenness of the trees, the cuteness of my dog's ear. Like there are moments when it's like, oh, like this world is a miracle. Oh my goodness. I've been feeling that more and more, like this past week, and even maybe a little bit more than that there. So the energetic weather report is still some heavy crapola, but brilliant moments when the clouds part and true divinity and true gratitude flows through. And in those true moments of gratitude, please know that is when you're creating the future. So that is when you will be like, oh, I love being alive and I want to do this, and this, and have a world like this. Please do that and envision those viable seeds for the future and for you in your best version of self, and turning down the volume on the crap and the insanity and the non-viable presences that need to go to entropy. Okay, that's a good thing to end on. All right, fantastic. Thank you as always. Thank you to people who catch the archive. Thank you very much, everyone.